General Langley, I have constituents that have been scattered across Africa on train and equip missions. So just ballpark, in the last decade, how many Africans has the United States military trained and equipped?
Congressman, I don't have that figure. I can get that figure for you.
Ballpark, just, how many?
Congressman, it would be a wild guess, right?
Seems like something we should know, right?
Over the years, we have trained a substantial number, especially in the Gulf of Guinea states, but including
like more than 10,000.
It is more than 10,000.
More than 50,000.
I'd say we're reaching around 50,000 at least.
And what percentage of the people we've trained end up participating in insurrections or coups against their own government?
Very small number, Congressman. Very small number.
So what percentage do you think?
I'd say probably less than 1%.
But it does happen. Right?
The IMET program is in force, and we've pushed a significant number through our schools across the.
Yeah, and what data sets do you track to arrive at the conclusion that less than 1% of the roughly 50,000 that we've trained have participated in coups? Because it'd be like about 500, about 1% of 50,000.
Congressman, you may have that information. I don't at this time, but I know.
Well, I know there are some, right? Like go ahead and throw up that image. This is Colonel Mamade Doumbouya, and this is a photo of him. Did we train and equip him in Guinea?
By name, I cannot identify that.
Well, that guy in the middle with the big red hat, Colonel Mamade Doumbouya, that's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea and threw out the leader. Does that concern you?
Congressman, core values is what we start off with in IMA programs.
Do we share core values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Core values. I will repeat that. Core values. Respect for humanity.
Do we share those values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Absolutely. In our curriculum.
He led a coup.
We do.
Okay, well, that's a very telling answer. In Burkina Faso, did we share core values with the leader that we trained there who led a coup?
It's in our curriculum. We stress core values. We request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not.
So
civilian-led.
My question is, do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso who we trained?
Holistically, we teach core values with a respect for civilian governance, apolitical, and that's what sticks across a very high percentage in the 90 over 99 percentile.
Right? But not everybody. And
welcome to another episode of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? We are back. This is going to be a great week of RBN. And just like Cenk Uygur, imagine getting cooked by Matt Gaetz. But that's what you were doing. When he had the general guy pinned to the corner, he said, is it our core value to do coups? And then he was forced to lie and said, no, we don't do coups. And he had like a pause right before he says, like, damn it, you forced me to say this blatant lie. What's poppin', fam? We got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, I had to start out with that clip, Nick, because I was watching it yesterday on stream, whenever it was, maybe it wasn't yesterday, and I was amazed. I was like, I have to play this during the Nick and CJ show.
What does it say that we don't have progressive members in Congress that has clips like this all the time? Like, imagine anyone that we have regularly featured on the show. Like, hell, imagine someone like Chris Hedges. Imagine Murray Kimberly, like, in Congress. The amount of fucking clips, amount of sound bites you would get from these people, just exposing them in the rank class. But we had to go to someone like Matt Gaetz. He's the only one that's allowed. Why is AOC, Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar? Why don't we have clips like this of them all the time, of them calling out the empire? You have them doing performative bullshit on January 6th, talking about how their life was in danger on that. But are they calling out?
That's some garbage.
The empire? But CJ, go ahead if you want to ask.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because the reason I was so amazed is that, I mean, of course, it's all the normal things. Matt Gaetz is having to do this. It's illustrating how Matt Gaetz is to the left of Bernie and people like AOC. Like there's no denying that. You're talking about forced to vote, and now you have this. Go ahead, Nick.
Now that you have a Democrat in charge, wait, if Joe Biden loses in 2024, you're gonna have AOC and the squad perform their shit like promote abolish ICE. They'll call it the military industrial complex, and that's kind of what you see here with Matt Gaetz. We see what Matt Gaetz does if Donald Trump wins again. But I predict the same thing when Joe Biden, if Donald Trump wins, you're gonna have the squad, and all of a sudden they're gonna discover what the empire is again. Like AOC tweeted about the Syria bombings when Donald Trump did it, and then when Joe Biden did it, all of a sudden, no, crickets. That was one of the things early on. I was like, damn, that's damning. That's damning. But go ahead, CJ. It's like
no, but to your point, this is why people have to understand and take a step back out of politics if you're in it, and examine it for what is happening and not what politicians are telling you. And that's my advice there. So, but let's get back to this clip. And what was amazing to me on this is that we're training. Because if you listen to the testimony, he said, so would you say 10,000? He's like, no, more than that. Say 50,000? He's like, we're approaching that. And then the key word he said or phrase was at least.
Yeah.
There's more than that. It's more than that. So the question is, why is the United States empire, what advantage it is to them, to us? We only do things that advantage us. We're capitalists here in the United States. What advantage it is to us to train 50,000 plus fighters in Africa? What do we get from that, Nick? Nothing. Unless those people you train go commit a coup d'etat in a country that's not friendly to corporations. And then it's like, oops, you get what I'm saying? It's like, yeah. Oh, sorry. Like 1%. You mean so you can imagine this? Could you imagine an empire training 100,000 people just to get 5 leaders out? I can. So what if the target is only 1%? 500 attempts at coups? What's wrong with that? You get what I'm saying? Like it's astonishing that it's being admitted to me. Maybe this has been admitted in public before, but it's astonishing to me that he's admitting this. And then he has a particular person, and let's listen to this part. He's bringing up specific people. Nick, that's amazing to me. He's bringing up specific people, saying you just mentioned earlier, because you said if you listen to the earlier testimony, this coon here, he said, actually, let me just let it play. I don't want to trip him up. I want to rewind it to where he begins to talk about is there's 2 particular people, and I'll just stop him when he says the part that I'm looking for here. So brings up this guy. Oh, he mentions in earlier when he says, have you trained them? And he says 10,000, 50,000. He says, especially in the specific country that he just said got cool. You think that was a setup? He set this guy up, Matt Gaetz. So let's listen.
In Guinea?
By name, I cannot identify that.
Well, that guy in the middle.
Now, he trained, by his own words, Nick, he trained most people out of that group that they trained was in New Guinea or Guinea. Now, all of a sudden, he doesn't know the name of the person. He goes in and memory and through this whole testimony, he goes in and out. Like, for example, I have no idea how many, but where did you get the 1% from? What, you have to have a starting point in order to be able to say 1%. So he goes in and out of memory. But let's listen to Matt Gaetz break him apart.
With the big red hat, Colonel Mamade Doumbouya. That's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea and threw out the leader. Does that concern you?
Congressman, core values is what we start off with in IMA programs.
Do we share?
He's being honest by not answering the question. When he says, does that bother you? He doesn't answer that because it doesn't bother the United States.
He's like, no, that's what we do, man. That's a Monday.
Core values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Core values. I will repeat that. Core values.
I know,
Respect for humanity.
Do we share those values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Absolutely. In our curriculum.
He led a coup.
We do.
Okay, well, that's a very telling answer. In Burkina Faso, did we share core values with the leader?
This is a second country, Nick.
That we trained there who led a coup.
It's in our curriculum. We
Leading
stress
our curriculum. That's how you know you're a piece of shit when you say something like that. Like, what good guy says that?
It's in our curriculum. He's just going back to that.
Core values, request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not.
So
civilian-led, civilian-led.
That pause like, hey, you gotta force me to lie like a motherfucker right now. That pause is everything. Because if he was 100% sure about that, there'd be no hesitation like that. That pause is like, I gotta prepare for this shit right here.
He's like, look, he knows. He's like, look, he knows. He knows if there's anywhere written where we're saying explicitly that we want this coup, I am now online for perjury.
Yeah.
That's what he knows. He's like, Jesus Christ. This is what I swore to do when I got my honorary coon card. This is it right here. This is what they asked me to lay my blackness on the line for. Is this moment for this question? Let's listen.
Curriculum. We stress core values. Request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not.
So
civilian-led.
My question is, do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso, who we trained?
Holistically, we teach core values with a respect for civilian governance, apolitical, and that's what sticks across a very high percentage in the 99 percentile.
Right? But not everybody. And when I wonder how many people it takes to plan a coup. I mean, initially you didn't know how many we trained and equipped. Then you said it was 1%. You had no basis for that 1%.
Matt makes the same point here about how 1% just came out of his ass.
Number, because there's no data set you track. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. Another U.S. trained soldier stages a coup in West Africa by the Intercept.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I further seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. U.S. forces trained the Guinean colonel behind the recent coup in West African country, and this is regard to Guinea.
Without objection, so ordered.
So I guess the question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to?
And this is the $10 million question here. And this is the question that Bernie Sanders and AOC and the squad and all of progressives should be asking. This is the question, not Matt Gaetz.
So ordered.
So I guess the question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Congressman?
He like, man, you breaking the rules, man. We're not supposed to do this.
Lord.
Like you can tell at this point, he's like, nigga, we're not supposed to do this shit for real, man. Who let this motherfucker in?
This is not part of the script, man. This wasn't part of the rehearsal, Matt. And this guy clearly can't ad lib. We now have found a person in politics who's worse than Kamala on camera. He cannot on the fly come. That's why he keeps going back to core values. Core values.
If you think about it, CJ, they all like this. They all like, but they don't get grilled. Like Anthony Blinken, remember
That's
we did
true.
a segment where Chuck Todd, who was not trying to expose them, who was asking them easy ass basic follow-up questions, and then Anthony Blinken folded. So these people, they live in a very sheltered reality, and I'm not trying to bail this guy out. I'm just saying this guy's the standard.
No, not at all.
Like he's the standard. Like if you put any of these war hawks, any of these generals, any of these people, these pro-war Washington think tanks, and you grill them on their policy, they will sound like this because indefensible. But go ahead, CJ.
Our curriculum.
See, right back to that. Our curriculum.
Harvest this core values, and also to be able to embolden these countries for a representative democracy.
This is what's called a tell. You have this polished officer of decades stumbling over words, over basic questions of why should the American public be funding coups, and he can't even answer. You notice the questions that he literally cannot address. He like even now he can't address, or he's not. He just goes to a list of what we are telling people publicly we are. You, Matt, keep telling people what we do, really, and I keep just bringing up core values, freedom, and democracy. That's all they keep bringing up. But let's let this finish out, and then we can move on from it.
Democracy.
But General, that democracy isn't what emerges. The problem is, I know you may have great confidence in what you're teaching, but when two governments have been overthrown, I guess how many governments have to be overthrown by people we train before you sort of get the message that our core values might not be sticking with everyone? Is it 5 countries? 10?
We'll continue with our persistence in assuring
but do you think it's
that
working?
they harbor democratic norms, democratic values.
Just a moment ago, you said we shared core values with Colonel Doumbouya. You said that just moments ago in response to my question, and his core value seems to be leading a coup. So I don't think it's stuck. I think we should at least know how many countries we train the coup plotters in. How many is too many? Because clearly 2 is not too many, and I think we could use our resources far more effectively than doing this. General Lang.
Man, it's so sad. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. Or I'm looking at it right now from a perspective of sadness, Nick, because we don't have anybody who's authentically saying this in Congress whatsoever. Like nobody authentically. Like we clearly know he has a motive. Matt has here. Unless if he bears out to be different, I'll come back and apologize. But right now, there's no way I believe what he's saying.
I wish we had someone.
He is making the point. Go ahead.
I wish we had someone in Congress that was saying this that didn't hate poor people.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like whenever Rand Paul gets shit right, I'm like, yeah, but he hates poor people. Right. So like, can we get someone who don't hate poor people?
And hasn't had a scandal with a teenager. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
that's what we need.
Forgive me, guys. I tend not to. I've been hurt, deeply wounded by politicians in my life. Starting with Barack Obama, then you have Bernie Sanders. So I am hard to trust a politician. When I hear Matt Gaetz speak, every time I hear him speak, like, man, I wish we had someone real saying this because I don't think he's real.
Why do you think AOC and people in the progressives? Because you obviously can critique in this way. So why do you think they you know what I mean? It's the same reason. Why did they vote to break a strike when their vote wasn't needed? Like why aren't they doing these things when clearly there's a lane? Force to vote is another one. Why do you think they are doing these things? I guess focusing on this because it could be different reasons for the other stuff I mentioned.
They're driving to emasculate the left. They want to kill the morale of the movement so much that people just submit and say, damn, I guess Joe Biden is really the best we can do. And that is what a lot of the old Bernie people, that's what they reverted to. If you look at the Ro Khanna, the Pramila Jayapal, the AOC and Bernie Democrats, the DSA left, they're like, fuck, Biden is the best we can do. Negotiating for crumbs is the best we can do. And those are people that still to this day, is straight up advocating for the Democratic Party. These are people who their content.
How is that not nihilism? How is that not nihilism?
It is.
How is supporting? Isn't just think about thought. This is a thought exercise, follower. How is supporting a party you say you would not normally support if there was other options? How is that not nihilism? You tell me that. Because you're giving up. You're saying, I would vote for a Green Party if it was viable.
Yeah. Man, the third parties will never win. So let's support a far-right fascist party as it continues to do stuff that Donald Trump would never do. Come on, someone explain the mindset and logic of that to me. And adding,
go ahead.
And I was about to say, this has been nothing but a complete failure. I'm going to do a full statement on this later. Consider this a preview. I already know I'm pretty much saving this for tomorrow, but I want to show you guys this because I saw this before we went live, and this teams up with the fact that Joe Biden funded ICE more, funded the police more. He broke a rail strike. Like, what he took COVID relief funds and gave it to the police. And now you have Joe Biden. And this is crazy. I want to do a full breakdown. I'm just interjecting this in the conversation because you had city council that passed criminal justice reform, and then you had the mayor. Like I said, all Democrat mayors are trash, so he vetoed it. So then the city council overrode that veto, and then Joe Biden supported the mayor and used his executive authority to reaffirm the veto. I'm reading the show. I'm like, dude, this is how our fucking system works. What kind of democracy is this? You had people who organized and got progressive city council members who got criminal justice passed, and then the Democratic mayor vetoed it. Then the city council overridden it. Then the president used some fucking weird wizard power he has to affirm.
Are you talking about Washington, D.C.? You talking about the Washington, D.C. thing?
Yeah.
The Washington, D.C. So because D.C. is not a city, like it's governed, it's a weird thing where the Senate can vote on a measure, can vote laws that supersede what the city council does. It's a very weird.
Wow.
So what Joe Biden has to do was just veto what the Senate tried to do, which is override the city council's vote.
Yeah, and
he refused to veto it, which everybody, even the people in the progressive liberals, thought he was. It came out in the news when he decided. It was like, what? They were blindsided. They thought for sure he was going to veto it, and he was like, "That's what they claim, Nick. You know how they claim what? You know, Pramila went on there and was playing the what? We're mad, like you know when she plays that role. We're damn mad.
So we gotta get all the receipts to do a formal statement on that. But I interjected that in this conversation now because I'm showing you guys the tactic and the strategy of pushing Joe Biden left. Name me a political strategy that aged worse than that. I mean, I had a conversation with Voss. I talked to many people, and I said, if you support and vote for Joe Biden, the Democratic Party will shift to the right, and then they will Voss and these people making insane arguments to me. It sounds good to them.
What were some of the arguments? Tell me, because I don't know Voss that well. Tell me what some of the shit he was saying to you.
They were saying, well, if we abandon and we don't vote for the Democratic Party, then the Democratic Party will see that they lost our support and they won't do what they want us to do. If we do vote for them, then they will see they have a friendly, progressive side that they'd be more willing to work with. And I'm like, are you guys out of your fucking mind? That's literally what Voss was trying to tell me. He said, if we show them that we're not willing to support them, they will abandon us and you will never get anything done. And I was telling them, if you support them, they will just go after the people who don't vote for them, the suburban white women that voted for Donald Trump both times. They will go after more conservative voters, like Chuck Schumer said. For every one progressive we lose, we pick up 2 suburban house moms. And that's something that objectively true. You had Lawrence O'Donnell that had a famous clip where he was like, yeah, if you don't show that you're not willing to vote for him, they had no reason to support you. And that's what I was telling these people. And they was like, man, oh my God, Nick, he must be grifting to the right. He's trying to get Trump supporters to his Substack. I'm like, no, we got to flex our power as a left proletariat movement and say we will refuse to support someone like Jim Crow Joe Biden, who has an insane track record that he does.
You tell me, Nick. Go ahead, Nick. Because I don't want you to rant too far from what this point I want to make.
Yeah, it's all good.
When you said Voss when you said Walsh basically said, if we retreat from them, they will never. How is this not a groupie situation? How are you not playing the groupie, Walsh, if you're saying this person who is not going to willing to do anything I want, any of the policies I want, not treating me well, if I walk away from this person who's doing all this bad stuff,
CJ, make no
I'm
sense.
going to be shut out. So I need to, you know, be nice to these people. That's a groupie. That is the description of a groupie.
I was so morally beat down at these shit-lived arguments. I was like, so after listening to crimes of Joe Biden, like, so will you tell black people that they should vote for their oppressors, given your ideology? He just said yes. And I'm like, all right, what can we say?
Said yes.
Yes. I in the debate, you can see I literally said, should black people vote for their oppressors? He said, yeah. What do you say to this shit liberty at this point? So
it's not serious. I'm so happy I never heard of that guy until like
I was like,
year. I'm so happy
I can do, man. Like,
there's no way, man.
It's a token, and you see what that led to. And I'm do this. I do this victory lap because at this point we got mountains of evidence. The border industrial complex increased more than Biden under Donald Trump. He's expanded all Donald Trump's immigration policies. You had him double down his support of a far-right Israel apartheid regime. He escalated and doubled down on Donald Trump's hard stance on Iran. You had John Kirby just say, yeah, Iran deal off the table. Oh, yeah, we might invade Haiti. That's the same one we'll do later.
Yes,
I'll invade Haiti. That's Biden administration. Put sanctions over here, sanctions over there. This is the same right-wing government that you guys have been proven wrong. It's just an objective fact. I said if you guys support these people, they will shift to the right, and that is exactly what happened. And they're still not reflecting. They still 100%.
They're doubling down. You see what Anna's doing. She's doubling down every day, just moving to the right on every issue. The homeless and the police state issue, she goes pretty ham at. She goes pretty consistently ham at. So I don't get it. I think we talk about this all the time where it's like we're so amazed that it's so much shifting of the paradigm of understanding of what Democrats and Republicans are supposed to be supporting. And I think of course, this is what they collapsing system. People are just trying everything. But to close this segment on Matt Gaetz, just to bring it back to kind of close it up, again, that shit was just outstanding to me. Like, that was some of the best shit I ever seen. Like, how he just laid that shit out. He knew the guy, trained people in Guinea. I think that's what he said. And then he brought up the picture of the dude, thinking he would recognize. He know that dude. He recognizes that dude. He know he recognizes that dude, but he has to pretend like he does not. We need to use, when Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene do these things, you and I, or RBN, need to cover this in this manner, giving them kudos for what they're doing, so that they can compare what Sam Cedar and everybody else. People need to see through this shit. Like, wait a minute, dude, you're not even going to call him out on this? And it was forced to vote. Remember, people wasn't buying that shit. They wasn't buying it when the Freedom Caucus did the force to vote. People was like, what the fuck, man? They didn't buy no relational harm damage that AOC was trying to sell, and it's the same situation.
The funniest thing about the whole Freedom Caucus thing and Matt Gaetz is that you had the AOC and the boutique left who they love and worship the relationships with the Democratic Party so much. They saw what Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and, well, not Marjorie Taylor Greene, I mean Lauren Boebert was doing when they refused to vote for Kevin McCarthy, and they was mocking them. They was like, "Oh my God, they've been so destructive." You had AOC like, "Oh my God, I don't know what they think. I don't know what they think they're gonna accomplish here. They're wasting their time. Everyone's laughing at them. Meanwhile, they got committee assignments. They got budget. They got budget gains. They got
that footage that Tucker Carlson pulled out. That came out of that negotiation.
They got
footage
so much
January 6th. Like the footage of January 6th, Nick. That awesome footage that came out that showed that it was people freaking having a freaking, I forget how they said, but sightseeing at the damn Capitol for hours, and they're acting like this shit.
And they got veto power over Kevin McCarthy. Can y'all imagine the progressives in the squad got veto power over Nancy Pelosi? What? They got massive gains. Meanwhile, the deeply unserious boutique life is like, look at these people. The media in the Washington class doesn't like them. We got more followers than them on Instagram. Aren't we great? They were miscalculating. Meanwhile, they got all the fucking power after what they did while the squad is relegated to a corner, retweeting each other. So that's all the stuff they got.
With no committee assignment.
Yes.
With no committee assignment and your reputational harm, AOC, that's over. I don't know if you saw your approval rating, but your reputational harm, that shit is over. But she was more talking, to be honest, she was talking about her relational harm with the leaders. She doesn't want to be in bad with them. Because somehow one night that celebrity is gonna pick you, the groupie, to be with you that one night, and that's what you waiting for. You're selling your soul for that one night. That's what I'm saying. This is like a groupie to me. It's so groupie-ish to me.
It's sad to see. It's sad to see. I want to do. I think that was a fun one, but I want to do the first story. You can do some announcements real quick because speaking of Africa. The United States in the Biden administration, they have a grand plan, guys. They know what they're going to do to win over the hearts and minds of the African people, despite the Chinese propagandists and those Russian liars waiting their heart. You want to know what they're planning? They sending in Kamala Harris.
That's going to be
in the big dog. Anyway, that's our next story.
Yeah, all right. So let me do some announcements. We're sitting at 120 likes, but we're approaching 300 viewers. So can we get to like 270 likes? Let's do 150 people watching right now. Your eyes are here. Hit that like button. Give us those thumbs up. Today, YouTube decided to let us go live. Yesterday, when I went live, it showed that we were not live for the first 90 minutes of the stream. I couldn't believe it. Also, welcome to all the new subscribers. It's a slower trickle than normal, but we still appreciate the love. We're being heavily suppressed. The channel is absolutely on YouTube's radar for especially some of the stuff that they have taken down. Like they've taken down some of Nick's stream, at least 3 of Nick's streams on foreign policy, on particular conflicts they have taken down. So double check to make sure you're still following us as a subscriber, because they will unsubscribe you. And then if you're here and you like it, please give us a subscribe and a like. Also, our Substack, I think we're probably getting close to when we're going to start writing op-eds. And I asked, who did I ask? It was a journalist I had on recently. I asked if they'd be willing to write op-eds, and they were like, yeah. Oh, Professor, not a journalist, but Professor writes op-eds too. He's down. I want to reach out to Danny Haifong and so on. So join our Substack for that upcoming, and also to get notifications when we go live and when we drop clips. We also have our website, revolutionaryblackout.com. Check that out. We have memberships, $3.99 on YouTube. If you want something cheaper, you can go to Patreon. I think it's as low as $2 I've seen on there. On Patreon, if you're able to contribute, that's scrolling there at the bottom. And then back to you. Yeah, that's it. Back to you, Nick, for the next story.
One of the biggest stories has been the rise of China and the West's failure to isolate Russia on the global stage. I know you guys may have heard something different on our propaganda field network when they pretend that Russia's been isolated. No, the position of Africa and many Africans is we just kind of want to do business with both the United States and China. That's their position. The position of the United States is, if you're with China, you are against us. Even China's like, we don't really care about what other business deals you guys make, but we got a better plan. You guys will do better business with us. But at the end of the day, we want to do business. We want to avoid conflict. The United States is like, you with us or you're against us. So Africa obviously see both positions. They say, okay, we more in line with China. And this is shown in polls. It's shown with the direction that South Africa is making as well. They're more friendly with Russia. They did military drill with Russia, who's a strong ally of China. They want to maintain strong ties with Africa. You have Lula in Brazil. that openly said they want to maintain strong relations with China. You have Xi and Lula that about to meet here soon. Look at this poll here. This stuff like this is what is causing the United States to panic. And if you listen to these insane propaganda channels, I'm gonna show you guys one. We're gonna do my next statement. We're gonna do a propaganda report where they just talk about Haiti, invading Haiti, China going to war with China, and they talk about how China is a massive threat. China is not a threat to any of our lives. It's a threat to these neocons, these capitalists, these globalists, if you will, right? Where they feel like their United States hegemonic dominance, the capitalist model, is threatened by the arrival of another superpower. So that had nothing to do with us. It's the fact that Africa likes China, that India and China has a great trade relationship, that China has a great relationship with Brazil as well. These are the things that make the United States unhinged against China, and that's why you see all these ridiculous propaganda against China. It's not because China is an authoritarian country. It's not because China is having a genocide of the Uyghur population that no one can show bodies of. A genocide where there's no bodies, guys. Genocide where the life expectancy rate of the population goes up, where the literacy rate of the population go up, where the population is thriving. I've never seen a genocide like it, but they will say that's the reason. They will say that's the reason why. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, CJ.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is this poll. China surpasses the United States in the eyes of young Africans, surveys showed. I've shown that before. I'm going to show you guys a few other headlines, show you guys why the United States is desperate to have these big public relations campaigns with Kamala in Africa, the reason why they're demonizing China. And they've written stories, and we covered them as well. I should have saved them for this story, where they said Africa is falling for Russia's propaganda fear tactics. And it was like, and they were writing these very demeaning bullshit stories. Well, it was like, why is Africa falling for Chinese anti-American propaganda? Like straight up insulting, as if the African people can't think for themselves. As if they don't know what the United States and the Western powers have done to them. But I digress. I can write on this all day. Let me read some of these receipts. It's not going to be a long story. This is a great tweet I found for Nina. Shout out to them. Russia has written off debts to African countries in the amount exceeding $20 billion. Now, this is what Russia and China does. They forgive debts in Africa. Meanwhile, the IMF has bankrupted countries by imposing cultural imperialism. That's a story I may not get to today. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. But I'm still going to cover the Uganda anti-homosexuality bill and how liberals are using that to implement cultural imperialism. And I have a question for you guys. I'm kind of spoiling my segment, but do you guys think that has anything to do with the Uganda gold reserves? All of a sudden, the United States is interested in the domestic policy of Uganda that the United States actually influenced in the first place. Anyway, I don't want to bury that segment.
It's freedom, Nick. What do you mean? We want freedom. And oil.
English I can say with this, but I'm gonna say that segment for later. Maybe for Nick and I think Andrew would be good for that too. We see. But anyway, the point is, Africa knows what the United States has done to them. And they see the great business that they're doing with China and Russia. This is another example. China to waive some African loans, offer $10 billion in IMF funds. So you have this long pattern of Russia and China forgiving loans to Africa. China forgiving loans to Africa. Meanwhile, you have people who consider themselves progressives. You got people that consider themselves liberal. I'm anti-war. I believe I can see through propaganda. They will repeat. People like Matt Dust, they will repeat that China is engaging in imperialism in Africa. If you ever hear someone say this, I am asking you guys, please ask them to define imperialism. Because according to them, imperialism is when anyone does business outside of the United States influence. They say debt trap, as they got the fucking IMF.
It's truly unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable the way they scapegoat, the way they obfuscate. And Matt Dust, that guy, every time you mention him, he has to omit information in order to sell that stuff. Yeah, and that's what Kamala is going to have to do this in order to sell anything, is omit all of the past bad shit and current bad shit that's going on. So, but go ahead. I digress.
Yeah, I'm glad. Speaking of that, you're gonna have Kamala that's going to speak about that as well. This is, you have Kamala trip coming up. U.S. President Kamala Harris is expected to talk debt when she visits 3 African countries. She's visiting Ghana right now. I already saw a clip where she's just saying nothing but platitudes. I found out literally a few minutes before the show because we got videos coming out, and we said we had the conversations. Me and these Ghana officials, we were talking about freedom and democracy and diplomacy. It was like word salad bullshit that's not going to win anyone over. But this is the counter reaction to this. And you see these stories being written by the West because public perception. And I did a story on this as well, where you have polls that show anti-China propaganda, pro-China propaganda, anti-West propaganda, and pro-West propaganda. And now all of those 4 categories, and then they had a neutral category. Most people, after viewing all of those, was more on the pro-China side, more the pro-Russia side, especially when you go in Africa, when you just talk about just history. That what Lavrov did in South Africa. He just went there and talked about history. Remember apartheid? Remember how Margaret Thatcher really kind of supported that apartheid shit? Isn't that kind of weird? And they was like, damn, you're right. They just for example, that's the shit what they doing. Easily win these people over. I'll read this headline, then we get to the comments.
Do you really believe they think Kamala is gonna do something? Like, do they do? I can't believe that they honestly think that she's coming back with some deals. Like, hey guys, I worked it out. Like, I honestly don't believe. Maybe this is just for a public showing to say we made an attempt or something.
There's a story that showed Biden, the Biden administration is not happy with Kamala because she's not doing a good job plugging his weaknesses, plugging the gaps in his. Because if you're what they wanted Kamala to do is to be the person that would go on these trips. Remember, she went to South America, and that was she had that famous clip where she said, "Hey, do not come, do not come." That ended up becoming a bad thing. So they keep doing this thing where they send Kamala to do PR in these tough, tricky situations that Jim Crow Joe is too broken brain to do. So they sent Kamala out. I've seen some funny people that say this is kind of revenge for Kamala Harris calling out Joe Biden. Remember the election? A lot of people forget about this. Kamala Harris called out Joe Biden. Yeah, I'll pull this story up because we talk about it now. Here it is. Let me share this tab. You had Kamala Harris call out Jim Crow Joe for being a segregationist, tanked his poll numbers. She flew, and then Joe Biden apparently always hated Kamala after that, and she had to be talking to Kamala being selected as VP. So what I think, I'm telling you guys, it's just a theory. I don't have a lot of evidence, but I'm telling you, I just use them. Logic, and I'm just critical thinking here. So they was like, hey, Jill, let us pick Kamala Harris vice president. Don't worry, we got a plan. Because vice president was historically known as a position where you've been politically buried. Like, oh, you want to bury someone? Pick him as vice president. So Jim Crow Joe, being broken brain as he is, now a public speaker, knowing he's about to fuck shit up, they're gonna send Kamala Harris as the vice president to clean up all her mess, all his mess. They could even anticipate how horrible she'll be at the job. So now she's like a sacrificial lamb. Take out one of your rivals, and you get revenge for her sassing him in the beginning of the election. So that's what I think. I think this is set up. I think they did this. It was one of them high-level chess plays that only the Biden administration pulled off. You anoint Kamala as vice president because Amy Klobuchar fucked up. They're about to pick her, then the George Floyd shit popped off. Yeah. So they had to cross Amy Klobuchar off, and then they said, let's get to Kamala Harris and have her as our front man. And now that's as revenge. They buried her. So yes, she became vice president, but she has no future. Once again, I'll tell you guys, I will admit there's more of a fun theory because I don't have a lot of facts to back that up. But if you think about it, then now they send her to Africa after Lavrov had a great trip to Africa recently.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Africa. Yeah, Africa now openly, many countries being more open to BRICS as well. And now they're like, send the Kamala. You guys see what I'm talking about? I see someone say, I see you, Biden. You said a lot of super stickers, so I'll show you a comment here. He said that's way too much credit for the Biden administration. And I said that is fair pushback. But I definitely see them doing gangster shit like that. Just like, I think it was almost like a sink or swim kind of thing where it's like, if Kamala Harris becomes vice president and she kills it, that's all right. But she's probably gonna fuck it up. I don't know. I was just talking shit at this point. Let me show you now. Let me read this headline because this is hilarious. I flagged this and then went mini bar on Twitter because everyone was just laughing at how absurd it was. Because I saw this, it said Kamala Harris Africa trip. Now this is the strategy coming from the big brain Biden administration. Now you guys remember, this is what I was saying on Glenn's show. The Biden administration has exceeded my expectations on how incompetent they could be. Because the Biden administration took office after saying we're going to restore the United States status after Donald Trump, and the United States is a weaker geopolitically than I ever seen in my entire life. Push back on me if you guys want to chat, but I ain't never seen the United States this weak. We have U.S. allies openly defying the United States, like India. That was like, yeah, we're still going to trade with Russia. Fuck that shit. Yeah, United States look at South Africa. Hey, don't do military drills with Russia. They're like, we're gonna do military drills with Russia. Yeah, United States with Lula. Hey, Lula, don't meet with Putin. Don't call for peace. Lula like, kind of want to call for peace. So the Biden administration, now you got a lot of frustrations that come from NATO and Europe. The United States being bullied. You got Europe protesting. You got UK, France economy in shambles. And it's because of the Biden administration direction. So I may have
you haven't even mentioned the global South. You haven't an AMLO calling them out. Yeah. So just to add to them, go ahead.
DJ, I have like 2 Substack articles ideas in my. I think that'd be one of them. I'm gonna talk about how Biden like weakened. I'm not even talking about as an anti-imperialist position. Like, I'm talking about if you're like a Western chauvinist, if you want the United States to be on top, you should be looking at Biden like, bro, what the fuck are you doing, bro? You fucking this shit all up. Anyway, let's read this article. I'm talking a lot of shit. This segment is about as long as I wanted to go. Kamala Harris Africa trip. Can U.S. charm offensive woo continent from China? So this is the guest here. Obviously, I think the article, the headline speaks for itself. And you can see this is the tweet. I want to read that to dive into it. There's the tweet. And apparently she's at Ghana today. I saw a few clips. I didn't feel like they were worth really sharing. I might find one of them here soon. But this is her tweet. It was my honor to be on the continent of Africa, first here in Ghana, then to Botswana and Zambia. I look forward to meeting with leaders, young people, and entrepreneurs as we work together to invest in an innovation and ingenuity across the continent. Bunch of bullshit. So how hilarious that they want this? You might as well send, fucking Blinken, anyone except Kamala Harris. This is like probably one of the worst people they could probably send. But the liberal mind probably they were thinking like, oh, she's black woman, so we send her there to Africa, maybe that would work. But if anything, they don't understand that black people see people like Kamala Harris, and that makes it's even more disgusting. Considering her track record, like it's better if that's fucking Amy Klobuchar doing what she has done. But anyway, anything you want to add to the Kamala segment? I'm gonna see if I can find that. Anyway, go ahead. Anything you want to add to this?
No, we can. I mean, we piled on her pretty good. She's pretty disgusting. I do feel like I didn't like pairing what you thought of was happening. Like this is a setup basically to bear her politically, and I was saying basically like, do you really believe? And that answers the question. They really don't believe she's going over there to really accomplish anything. So I think that could be the final word.
Yeah, they put she's there to make statements and speak on tough situation for the Biden administration. She was supposed to be someone who could save them, but now they're more than happy for her to be a sacrificial lamb. Anyway, anything I'll pass you. Said I know you got another segment. The next segment I may do will be I'm gonna do this propaganda report where you had John Kirby that's everywhere, just saying the quiet part out loud everywhere. Like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? He be doing this media tour. There's also a story I may cover this at Nick and Night where you have the ex-Taiwanese president who, and this is for the first time since the Civil War, first time in 40 years, you had a Taiwanese president visit China, and they said we want to establish peace, and this is one of the gestures that we want to do. So this is like the West is gonna hate to see this because there's Taiwan sees what the West is doing to Ukraine, and it's like, fuck that shit. They benefit a lot from the relationship.
What is the propaganda report on? Like, what is it Morning Joe, or who did you say again?
Oh yeah, you know it's Morning Joe. Oh yeah, by the way,
okay.
I may tie those two together because guess who that show? I never got to this segment, but I saw another
Jen Psaki. Yeah, or is it Psaki? Jen Psaki. Sorry.
Yo, she has a new show. She did a segment on Ukraine, Ron DeSantis. Then I saw another segment she did. Bro, she quickly about to be the new Morning Joe because she had Eric Holder on. I saw this segment. It was insane. So she's like going to be the new face of the establishment. Like this is state TV. This is like the new state TV show where the Jen Psaki show is going to be the voice of the empire, right? You have Eric Holder that came on there, and so she had the government contacting all the high-ranking guests, and it's just disgusting. But John Kirby and Morning Joe, man, I've seen a few other clips of John Kirby recently. He's been on this campaign where, and recently he said, and that what Aaron Monte was covering. He said peace negotiation between Zelensky and Ukraine is unacceptable. I mean, Zelensky and China unacceptable. Then he just recently went on Morning Joe, and I saw this like, Jesus Christ, I gotta show this to CJ. But anyway, CJ, I'll pass to you. Those are just some previews.
Yeah,
but go ahead, CJ.
We'll do all the Marianne Williamson stuff, and then we can get to that. You know, it's gonna be a typical Monday where we're stuffing a bunch of shit. Actually, we get into about almost a good amount of our stories today, even though we pre-cut some out because there was some we didn't even add in for today because we knew it was like, hey, there's no chance. But even the ones we added in, we may not get to. But I think the Glenn Greenwald one we pushed off for several days, so I think I want to get to that. And then Brianna dropped a interview. We're not going to watch the whole interview. I watched the whole thing, and there's two specific points where her guest talk to us about how there's a lot of people that's like, I don't fuck with the Democratic Party. So sell me on those people. And both of them attempt that. So those are the 2 points I want to discuss with her. Nick will be back. His internet dropped down. So let's get to some quick announcements. There he goes. We'll get to some quick announcements. Yeah.
Crash, but,
yeah, I told everybody, like, he just had a little glitch and he'll be right back. So it happens. That happened to me before. And I was by myself. That shit was scary. But luckily, it was still on. It was funny.
Yeah.
All right. You can toss. I'll do some announcements, and then we'll get to the story. So one that
I had some chats, but it crashed. I lost a few of the chats I had. So I'll pass to you. So you can do your story. I got a few more.
Oh, you had some super chats that were saved or something, or chats that were saved, just regular chats. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I lost them now. But anyway, I'll pass to you, CJ. We can move on.
Right on. So, all right. So let's go here first. We have a fundraiser we're doing. RBN Labor fundraiser we do every month. Right now, the goal is $1,000. That's our Venmo, Revolutionary Blackout. If you want our GoFundMe, the reason we don't just broadcast it is because we haven't launched our GoFundMe technically, so we don't want to just put it out there. We want to have a launch date for it, along with some other stuff coming up in our anniversary month in April. So email us and we will send you our GoFundMe if you rather use GoFundMe instead of Venmo for our fundraiser. Also, check out our website if you want to go see some of our community work. We have $3.99 memberships now. Our Substack is here. Join it if you want notifications or when we go live, or our upcoming op-eds which will probably be soon. And then the last thing is we're sitting at 350 people watching. Thank you so much for watching. We're about to go into our Marianne Williamson sort of segment, and it is a couple of clips we're going to be kind of dissecting. And we kind of put them all into one. So we're sitting at 205 likes. But we have 350 people watching. Can we get that to 300 likes? So 95 people hit that like button. That'll get us to the target of 300 likes. And now let's get back into the story. And I want to start with the interview that I didn't know you can watch Rumble like this, like you can same way you can watch YouTube. I thought you had to log in each time, but you don't, because I forgot to log in. But anyway, let's watch this interview that Marianne Williamson did with Glenn Greenwald. Not sure she understood or even understand the politics of Glenn Greenwald when it comes to war, at least. I'm not sure she knew that, so that will be the perspective of some of the questioning. It feels like if she does more interviews like this, she's going to be exposed as not really understanding what's going on. Like her suggestion, I just watched a recent interview, her suggestion of police brutality, about fixing police state, is to just bring Tim Scott and Cori Bush together and let's talk about this.
Come on, man.
No. Tell me what's your plan. What do you think needs to happen about the police state? Tim Scott? Like you think that's a good plan? It was unreal, but I know we both have a lot to say about this interview because the foreign, especially the foreign policy part. So let me know.
Yeah, there's a lot to say. So there's a lot to say on this, and I'm glad that Glenn hammered her on the foreign policy. If you're gonna run that commander in chief, like you can't be like that can't be your part-time shit. Like I kind of dabble in foreign politics sometimes. No, you need that. You need to be writing about that shit. You need to be a proficient in it. Like more than me. I'm not saying I am. Like you need to out
more than you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like anyway, let's continue because I got a lot to add. Because there's gonna be a lot of coverage. So I'll let play. There's gonna be a lot of coverage.
Absolutely. I've watched this like twice, by the way. So let's watch.
Marianne, good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I'm delighted to speak with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on, Glenn. It's nice to see you too.
Absolutely. So primary challenges of a sitting president are one of the most difficult things to do in politics, as I'm sure you know. Interestingly, it's also one of the rarest. The last time it happened in any notable way within the Democratic Party was Ted Kennedy's challenge to Jimmy Carter in 1980, 43 years ago. And generally, it's only been done when someone believes that the party is fundamentally off course or the administration is fundamentally off course and therefore needs a primary challenger to point that out. Is that something you believe about the Biden administration and the Democratic Party? And if so, what are those fundamental differences you have with them?
Well, first of all, when I was growing up, Glenn, and Eugene McCarthy primaried Lyndon Johnson, Bobby Kennedy primaried Lyndon Johnson, nobody thought it was like the wrong thing to do. Everybody just thought, well, this is democracy and people run and there are elections and then the primary voters decide who the person is that would be the best opponents in the actual general election. So I think the idea that people find it odd is odd. We're not living at a time where a bunch of men smoking cigars should be deciding who the candidate is. I think of myself as a kind of FDR Democrat. And so, yes, the Democratic Party has swerved from its unequivocal advocacy from the working for the working people.
See, when they tell you something, so you believe them. When they say when they're FDR Democrat, huh? You mean Mr. Japanese internment camp? The man he don't got a clean record. And that's why she wrong on things like Ukraine. Do not call yourself an FDR Democrat. If you want to make the overall point of how unions and communists twist the arm of FDR against the New Deal politics for white America, you can make that point, but stop praising the motherfucker. He's not that good.
Because that's not how white history works. White history works by praising a white male figure for something, giving them attributes to something that they don't deserve. It happens throughout, and this is what she's doing. Clearly, the communists and socialists, everybody knows this. Thomas Frank, we had him on the show back when we was FHL, and we talked about this. So it's absurd. Like his hand was forced, and he signed a legislation. That's like saying Lyndon B. Johnson was down with civil rights. He was forced because of the time to sign the legislation. Same with the Abraham Lincoln. They're trying to saying it with history telling. Oh, no, he was forced at the time to do that. But let's continue. I forgot. I'm the one controlling the video.
the United States. And I'm reminded of a line from Eleanor Roosevelt when she said, we need to do more than alleviate stress. We need fundamental economic reform. So in that sense, yes, I think the Democratic Party needs to go back to its traditional values, which has to do with that unequivocal and unabashed support as opposed to the split allegiance. I think of the Democratic Party as...
And what people who say I'm an FDR Democrat refuse to say, did FDR include black people in this shit? You have this fantasy time that when the Democratic Party was great. When were they great to black people? When did that happen? Let's continue.
Or I think of the corporate Democrats anyway, as recognizing to some extent that it's an unjust system. They're not stupid. They get that over the last 48 years, there's been this $50 trillion transfer of power into the hands of 1%. They feel bad that people are having a hard time. So they want to, on the peripheral here, on the periphery there, make it easy.
This is her. This is literally her describing her in actuality. But she's pretending as if this is the description of the milquetoast corporate Democrats and not her.
She also projecting her feelings of the Democrats here because she wildly off base because she would say stuff like maybe they really do care and they give lip service. No, the fuck they don't. You think Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer cares? And you're gonna see, I'm gonna let play here. You're gonna see that Marianne Williamson has this nostalgia for the Democratic Party that should never existed ever. In the 90s, the Democratic Party wasn't better. Bill Clinton got everything that Ronald Reagan couldn't done accomplished. So she do the thing where the Democratic Party sold out. They changed. We got to make the Democratic Party great again like it used to be. Like, no, the Democratic Party always been trash. Marianne, let's continue.
Easier for people to survive this unjust system. But they are unwilling to challenge the underlying corporate forces that make the return of that pain and suffering always inevitable.
Are you? Are you willing to challenge the underlying corporate sources? Because that's capitalism.
She like, you gotta be able,
so I believe that that split.
She said, she's like, you gotta be able to challenge the underlying corporate powers. Meanwhile, she support the Ukraine funding that who benefits from that? Raytheon, Boeing, all these shady corporate interests. So it's like there's a certain line you're not crossing. Let's continue.
This is her wheelhouse. This is where she feels most comfortable, where she can talk about inequality and corporations being bad and somehow there's some good Democrats and bad Democrats. This is her wheelhouse. She gets really uncomfortable, and I might fast forward if there's a lot more of this gibberish before we get to the meat and potatoes. I want to get to the foreign policy.
We should play whatever.
Yeah, I think she kind of closes it down right here, and then he asks her question. So let's listen.
But that split allegiance is absolutely not where the Democratic Party should be. We need more than the alleviation of stress and incremental change. No American in the richest country in the world, which we are, should be having such a hard time surviving. We have 80% of Americans for whom life is on some level a daily economic struggle. And this kind of economic anxiety, number one, should not happen in this country. And I believe that people are waking up to the fact that the things which we are denied are the things which are considered moderate positions in every other advanced democracy, whether it has to do with universal health care, has to do with free tuition, which we had in this country until the 1960s, whether it has to do with paid family leave, sick pay, child care, guaranteed living wage. And these.
How is what she just described not the fringes? Remember how earlier she said they just want to tweak a little here on the sides, how she was describing her version of. You just listed a list of things that's literally just doing things on the outside, on the peripherals. That's all that list of things was. You're not talking about any sort of institutional change of anything. And you support the war. So let's continue. Sorry. No,
these are the things that the Democratic Party not only should be standing up for just on a in order to be true to what are supposedly our principles, but I don't think anything less than that economic U-turn is going to be enough to either defeat the Republicans in 2024 or begin this country onto a path of real repair.
She said that slip. You see what her priority is defeating the Republicans in 2024. There
That
it
is
is.
her priority.
I don't. We are just making it 100% clear how this is going to end. No one else want to talk about it. If this is going to end with you endorsing the Democratic Party, which we all know is the case, I am not interested. And the working class needs to say we're not interested in this. That's what it's going to head to. People are lying about that as if we don't know about the contract that they have to sign in order to even be part of the primary, in order to be part of the debate stage. Tulsi Gabbard endorsed Joe Biden. Everyone endorsed Joe Biden because they signed the contract. We know that's where it's going to end. So what is the long-term point of this? Which they do not answer. It's all about vibes, right? Let's continue.
So you mentioned 1968, which is undoubtedly one of the most fascinating and in some sense tragic years in American history. And it is interesting because it wasn't just that there was a primary, it actually forced Lyndon Johnson to announce he wouldn't seek re-election, in part because the success of Eugene McCarthy and Bobby Kennedy, until he was murdered, made it clear he was likely to face a lot of headwind, largely over the Vietnam War. And that same year, Martin Luther King gave what was one of his last and greatest speeches, where he kind of said, for a long time, I focused on my attention on domestic issues and racial issues, and I now realize those issues are inextricably linked to questions of foreign policy, what the United States does overseas,
That was a smooth transition.
various wars.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to finish, but we got it. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you can keep going. I see what you're doing. Go ahead. Let's continue.
Wars is a big reason why we have so much inequality here at home, and they cannot be extricated. I don't want to suggest there's a equivalency between the war in Vietnam and the war in Ukraine. Obviously, there's enormous differences. At the same time, Joe Biden himself says because of the war in Ukraine,
Jordan did this too.
Yep.
Where they're setting up the question to help you, Marianne Williamson, nudging you to say what you should be saying in order to get the audience that you want and the voters. He's literally helping you. He knows that you love MLK because you always. So he's telling you, the person you idolize says this about militarism, and he's telling you about how the Vietnam War and it was all bad. Ukraine is going to be looked at the same way. He's trying to help you, Marianne.
Yeah, the same as Jordan.
She's not taking it. She's not taking a bait.
That will make it so bad. But let's continue. They tried. They tried. They like here's the right answer. Please click on it. Let's continue.
Closer now to nuclear Armageddon than at any time since 1962, because we're facing a proxy war with the nuclear.
You see how he built it up? He said, "And there's nuclear Armageddon." Okay, so I told you all this stuff, right? Your idol likes it. Nuclear Armageddon, Vietnam. I'm helping you. No.
Are empowered. The last time people were asked to vote on that was in May, when the Biden administration requested $40 billion on top of the $15 billion that had already been authorized.
Did you hear the throat clearing?
Yeah.
I'm gonna rewind it. Now I did this. I think I covered something on my own, and I pointed this out because I noticed a tail. I have this. I'm on the spectrum for something because I could pick up patterns on any sort of pattern. It just stands out to me. And every time I'll be watching her content, when it got to a question she was uncomfortable with addressing, she did it in your interview. She did it in the interview with Jordan. And it was another, I forget the other, several interviews. She does that. You'll hear her clear her throat. And I said in my segment, Marianne, you need to fix this. Stop clearing your throat. It's to tell people know what you're doing when you're doing that. Or I'm picking it up. But so I'm going to rewind it just a few seconds so you can hear the clearing of the throat that I'm talking about here.
It wasn't just that there was a primary. It actually forced Lyndon Johnson to announce he wouldn't seek re-election, in part because of the success of Eugene McCarthy and Bobby Kennedy.
She's going to keep doing it. That's just one.
Until he was murdered, made it clear he was likely to face a lot of headwind, largely over the Vietnam War. And that same year, Martin Luther King gave what was one of his last and greatest speeches, where he kind of said, for a long time, I focused on my attention on domestic issues and racial issues, and I now realize those issues are inextricably linked to questions of foreign policy. What the United States does overseas in its various wars is a big reason why we have so much inequality here at home, and they cannot be extricated. I don't want to suggest there's a equivalency between the war in Vietnam and the war in Ukraine. Obviously, there's enormous differences. At the same time, Joe Biden himself says because of the war in Ukraine, we're closer now to nuclear Armageddon than at any time since 1962, because we're facing a proxy war with the nuclear armed power. The last time people were asked to vote on that was in May, when the Biden administration requested $40 billion on top of the $15 billion that had already been authorized. Every Democrat, every single one of them in unity voted yes. It was 6 or 7 dozen Republicans who voted no. Most Republicans voted yes as well. How would you have voted on that authorization for $40 billion on top of the $15 billion back in May to fuel the proxy war in Ukraine?
I think if you're going to be an anti-imperialist, you have to be an anti-imperialist, whether it's an American or a Russian. And even though I don't think
that doesn't
Nick,
answer the question.
She has been studying left podcasts since February of last year, when we know that's when she decided to run. And you know how I got evidence? Now I sent it to you. Bad Faith interview I watched this morning. The South Carolina director she picked says Marianne Williamson reached out to me to be the representative in February of 2022. So she's been watching content to get sort of versed in left speech and language, because she's saying now, using anti-imperialist as if she's that. If you're going to be an anti-imperialist, you have to. So she is literally just using the term anti-imperialist for people to act so that can be synonymous with Marianne Williamson, when she is not that whatsoever. She's not that whatsoever. And it's sort of infuriating, because I've watched many interviews with her and she's now beginning to use this word. This is one of the first interviews where she's using, if you want to be an anti-imperialist, like she's that. Just completely co-opting the language.
But the United States has had clean hands here regarding our relationship to NATO, regarding the Aegis missiles in Poland. I don't think any of that was a justification for this brutal dictator to make the invasion that he did. So I have felt that any withdrawal of support until very recently would be simply to say that it's okay for there to be no more Ukraine. And that would be intolerable to me. But we have known, General Milley has said it, the RAND Corporation has said it, this is going to be a negotiated settlement. And I think we have a moment here where something might be happening. Xi talking to Putin, presenting some principles of possibility for a negotiated settlement. We'll see what Zelensky does and what Zelensky says about that. And I think the United States should do everything possible to support that negotiated settlement and a diplomatic solution.
So the posture of the United States government, as expressed by John Kirby, the
question, because Glenn asked her, will she vote for it? Will you vote for these bills? She never answered. She's like, as an anti-imperialist, Putin's a dictator, and we got to make sure Ukraine is as one as whole. Then she mentioned the Chinese peace deal, and the Chinese peace deal calls on the West to respect the sovereignty of the Donbass in eastern Ukraine that want to be independent, to respect the referendums and democracy. So do you support that, Marianne Williamson? The question is yes or no. Don't mention the Chinese peace plan when you clearly are not for it, because the Chinese peace plan called for the United States to not arm the Ukraine crisis no more. So the question is yes or no. Will you vote for it or not? And she dodges it there, and I think that's very revealing. Plus her answer as a whole, but we can keep it going because there's a lot more to break down here as well.
Former Pentagon spokesman who now works in the White House and other U.S. officials, when asked about the potential for a ceasefire in diplomatic relations or diplomatic attempts to resolve the war, has been, we're totally opposed to any ceasefire. We think that it would allow the Russians time to rebuild. Do you agree with that? Do you
That's
think
why you gotta
that,
interrupt people, man. That's
the
why I'm
United
pro interrupting people. Because Marianne Wilson went on a long bullshit spill, and now the audience forgot that she didn't answer the damn question.
Yeah.
She didn't, because her answer would be yes, but she don't want to come out and say yeah. So she's like, yes, anti-imperialist going long bullshit spill, and now she never answered the question. That's why you interrupt her, ma'am. You didn't. And your answer, the answer, will you fund the war or not? Anyway, let's continue. Let's continue.
States and other NATO countries should continue to oppose a ceasefire and fuel the war, or would you be in favor of kind of a Chinese attempt, along with the Russians and Ukrainians, to forge a ceasefire in the hope of getting a resolution to the war?
It shouldn't be John Kirby's decision. It shouldn't be the U.S. State Department's decision. I think we need to hear what Zelensky himself has to say. Zelensky has said that he is open to.
What are you talking about?
So Glenn asked her another great follow-up question. So he's like, shit, she didn't answer the first one. So will you be in favor of what the United States want to do, where we continue to arm them, no peace? Or are you in favor of the Chinese model, where we actually seek peace? She said, and then she reverts to the Biden administration talking point, where she says, it's not up to the United States to decide, it's up to Zelensky. Boom, it's over for her. She literally, her answer to Glenn's question is, I will be a puppet of Zelensky. You guys hear that? Glenn asked her, what will you do regarding the peace? Well, it depends on Zelensky. The fuck? That's the same. Actually, that's worse than Biden. Because Biden is controlling the puppet. You would let Zelensky, who's calling for nuclear war, who calling for invading Crimea, you would hand the baton to him? And you want to be a leader? This is deeply unserious. This is the person who wants to be the leader of the left. The person who wants to be the leader of the left is like, punt the ball to Zelensky. Pathetic. I want to hear more, because I'm sure she's just getting started. But that's
she's
unbelievable.
She has a lot more,
unbelievable to say.
He's interested. He wants to hear what the Chinese have to say. We know that Xi talked to Putin, but there hasn't been any report that he's talked yet, even virtually, to Zelensky. So no, the United States should not be making that decision. The United States should be doing everything to support any possibility that's occurring here of a negotiated settlement in Ukraine.
So just to be clear, then, so many of Zelensky's.
She is saying stuff that makes no sense. The United States is funding the war. Without the United States funding the war, Ukraine has no leg to stand on. So if anyone in this equation decides when the fuck Ukraine negotiates, it's the people who fund us in the war. And if Ukraine does not agree, we can say, okay, good luck being Russia. And then it can be Russia, that's great. But the only reason they are emboldened to invade Crimea and continue to waste their Ukrainian soldiers' lives is because of U.S. funding. So as president, especially as someone on the left, you need to be a leader. You coward. You need to be a leader because you're the leader of the quote-unquote free world, the United States. So you step up and you become a leader of peace. The quote-unquote left in America is saying that they don't want to be a leader of peace. They want to punt the ball to Zelensky. But they think RBN is being too hard on her? This is as bad as an answer as it gets. I'll let it keep playing. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable
statements, especially over the last.
So Glenn, so Glenn notices she's not answering the question. So he says, "Hold on, just to narrow down the answer."
Just to be clear in that, so many of Zelensky's statements, especially over the last 4 or 5 months, have become almost, I would say, more kind of maximalist. That he has no interest in ending that war until not only is Russia expelled from every inch of Ukrainian territory, but Crimea is wrenched out of the hands of the Russians as well. And he is willing to fight for not only months, but years, if necessary, in order to accomplish those war goals. So if the position of Zelensky is, we don't want to stop this war until every one of our objectives is achieved, including expelling Russia from Crimea, would that mean you would continue to do?
You see that different change in her expression there? Did you see that? She's like, oh, you motherfucker. Yeah, I thought you were nationally known, Glenn. You're like RBN. You're going to be asking follow-ups on top of follow-ups? How dare you?
Remember
Did you just see her go from...
Yeah. And now, and now sorry to interrupt, but remember the interview on Fox News where she was being grilled, and even though the guy was interrupting her over and over again, she didn't accuse the Fox News host of mansplaining and interrupting her. Just saying, by the way. So she had a contentious interview when he was asking why run. But despite the guy being apparently hostile, she was all in. She was in the group, like, yeah, it's okay, I'm gonna run. She didn't mind if he was interrupting her at all. Meanwhile, she get tough anti-imperialist questions, and she completely uncomfortable. What does that say that she's more comfortable having this fake hostile interview on Fox News versus RBN versus Glenn? But let's listen to her answer. I'm sure this shit's gonna be horrible.
Yeah, so I do want to do the progression of her face. So everybody pay attention to her reaction to Glenn at like re-asking the question.
Talked to Putin, but there hasn't been any report that he's talked yet, even virtually, to Zelensky. So no, the United States should not be making that decision. The United States should be doing everything to support any possibility that's occurring here of a negotiated settlement in Ukraine.
So just to be clear in this, so many of Zelensky's statements, especially over the last 4 or 5 months, have become almost, I would say, more kind of maximalist, that he is.
So she's already established we should listen to Zelensky. She's established that. So now Glenn, very smart journalist, says, okay, if we're listening, let me tell you what Zelensky is saying, though. Since you're saying we should go, what he's saying.
It's like talking to a child. and you guys can see it here, too. And I don't know if Glenn knows he's even doing it, too, because it's like, fuck, she has no substance. So Glenn had to talk down, explain to her the same way Jordan had to when they having their quote-unquote cordial interviews. Like, oh, let me explain this to you. Please, like he slowed down his speech, like he really wanted her to understand, and she still missed it. Imagine if you are like you playing baseball, you like throwing it slow, you like aiming it, you like throwing the slow pitch, like here you go, it's coming, here it is, and then they miss you, like fuck, then you go slower next time. Then they still miss. Then you like I'm gonna go slower. Then you like, I'm going to go, all right, this is the third time. I'm going to go slower this time. That's Marianne Williamson. Let's continue.
You need T-ball. So she obviously did not know what Zelensky has been saying.
Yes.
That's the change in her demeanor. Is like, oh, Zelensky has been saying this shit.
And you don't even know what the United States has been saying either, and that's why Glenn mentions like, yo, the United States hasn't been playing. So, like, Glenn explained this because it's clear to him, and I think anyone who's watching this, that Marianne Williamson had no idea what the fuck is going on here. She was told something to say, and she's gonna say it. She's not critically thinking about the situation. But let's continue.
He has no interest in ending that war until not only is Russia expelled from every inch of Ukrainian territory, but Crimea is wrenched out of the hands of the Russians as well. And he is willing to fight for not only months, but years, if necessary, in order to accomplish those war goals. So if the position of Zelensky is, we don't want to stop this war until every one of our objectives is achieved, including expelling Russia from Crimea, would that mean you would continue to just open the treasury of the United States and continue to pour unlimited sums of money for as long as Zelensky?
It's so telling. It's so telling. Her body language is so telling.
Demands it?
Well, first of all, Zelensky's comments the other day are different than the ones that you just described. So first of all, let's hear what Zelensky has to say.
He's Zelensky's PR guy now. She's Zelensky's PR guy. Let's continue. But that's your role? That's what you're doing now. You're here to play defensive for Zelensky. Oh, Glenn, I think you mischaracterized what the great Zelensky said. It's like when Jordan, remember when Jordan did the follow-up?
He's having a bad day, yeah.
And then she's like, oh, Biden, what are you talking about? It's Glenn is unbelievably professional, because if I was him, I'd be slapping my forehead right now. Let's play. This is unbelievable.
She has no idea what's going on.
To say now. And number two, no, you don't just open up the treasury. I would never support any kind of like a blank check for this. We should be taking whatever actions will help a negotiated settlement, but I'd like it to be a negotiated settlement that does allow Ukraine to exist as a country. And there have been times when such a suggestion would not have.
No, I get that. But I mean,
0 for 3. Still didn't answer the question. What were your thoughts about the blank check? I think you mischaracterized Zelensky's position. I think the United States should do everything it can to come with peace, even though they shouldn't transform. Like, you didn't answer the question. 0 for 3. Unbelievable. And people wonder why I interviewed her the way I did. Let's continue.
What are the limits that you would impose on the
He
U.S.'s?
tried again. You see, he tried again.
He's like, he has to just get. She just said, "Can you just tell me? Just write down a number, which you have, because she's not answering the question."
Hold up your hand. The number, if you can't say it out loud. He's begging her for an answer here.
Because what can the answer be, Nick? There's no good answer to this question if you're a person who's saying we want to continue helping Ukraine, because all he's going to say is, if you say 100 billion, we've exceeded that. 200 billion, we're 25 million, we're 25 billion away. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's no good number to say, because any number, we're already closing in. And if you start getting into 300 billion, people are going to be like, why the fuck are we spending 300 billion on this? There's no good number.
Let's say she answered for the 4th time. This is the 4th time. Glenn is very smart, and he slightly rephrases the question every time. Let's see for the 4th time what she answered this time.
There have been in times when such a suggestion would not have.
No, I get that, but I mean, what are the limits that you would impose on the U.S.'s support for
I think
Ukraine?
we should be open to what. So I think that we should be open to any moment when there might be the possibility of a negotiated settlement that would allow for the existence of Ukraine.
That does not answer the question, at all.
She's doing the same thing that the guy did in the interview with Matt Gaetz. If you don't have an answer to the question or a good answer, you just start repeating rehearsed lines. Isn't that what she's doing? Negotiated settlement. She keeps saying negotiated settlements. Go ahead, Nick.
No, you're on point, CJ, because now that you mention it, look at the body. Play that part again. Look at the body language where Glenn asked the father. He's like, all right, that's cool. All right, whatever. But the question again, is there any limits? And then Marianne, she's like, motherfucker, I told you my answer. You about to get it again. Like, you can see that she loses her patience. She repeats herself. She like, don't you understand? This is my answer. You're not getting anything better than me from this. I'm gonna keep saying it until you give up. And she eventually wins the battle of attrition. Because obviously, because Glenn got exactly like he did what he's supposed to do. Like, he exposed Marianne here. But after a while, Glenn, all right, fuck it, let's move on. Apparently, she's not gonna fucking answer my question. But it's so calculating what she's doing. And not only that she failed, and not only that she's having a brain fart, and not like a brain fart moment. This is calculated, and that will make it worse. Oh, not like, oh man, she made a silly mistake in this interview. No, she's making this calculated dodge on the Ukraine issue. Ask yourself why. CJ?
There's no dressing this up to be not good. There's no way you can make this seem like this is a good interview here so far. So let's listen some more.
There have been in times when such a suggestion would not have.
No, I get that, but I mean, what are the limits that you would impose on the U.S.'s support for Ukraine?
I think we should be open to what. So I think that we should be open to any moment when there might be the possibility of a negotiated settlement that would allow for the existence of Ukraine. And I think, and like I said, we might be on the verge of such a moment. That's why what's happening now with China is interesting. We live in a multipolar world now. This is not about the United States just dictating what we want all the time. There are other powers. And it's like when Macron tried to make some kind of a negotiation happen.
She completely took the conversation away from the question.
To broker some kind of
completely.
Go ahead.
Deal. And I'm not naive about the Chinese Communist Party, but if they have some ideas on the table
Chinese
here,
Communist Party. Man, that's
go ahead.
That's not enough for this conversation. I'm sure you probably knows it as well. Man, the anti-China rhetoric that's coming from Marianne and Rokana. Rokana had an interview with Democracy Now! Where the same thing. So not only are you a Zelensky PR agent puppet, now you're repeating Mike Pompeo level China propaganda. But let's continue, because She's just getting started. When I first heard, I was like, "What? What he say?" Okay, maybe she just
So, but this is weird. It's a weird position because this is how you can tell she just kind of throwing shit out there, because in one breath she's trying to say, "Wait, China's going to negotiate peace. Let's wait and listen. Let's see what they have to say." And then in another breath, she's saying the Chinese Communist Party.
She implying not to trust them.
Like it's like a weird position that you have this propaganda about them, and then you want to lean on them for peace. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's showing that one of these areas, like, you're just saying shit that you don't have any sort of backing or knowledge behind it. Go ahead.
Yeah, she's just close. Let's continue.
Maybe bring a negotiated settlement closer between Zelensky and Putin, then I think the United States should say, hey, let's hear what it is and let's do what we can to support that.
So, speaking of China and the Chinese Communist Party, there was a big hearing held today in the House of Representatives.
It was like, oh, she's not answering.
She's not gonna give me the. She's not gonna give me.
And Glenn Greenwald was one follow-up question away from Marianne Williamson accusing him of mansplaining. If one more time he was like, Marianne, I'm actually gonna explain to you what the United States. Oh my, he knew. Yeah, he was answering it. Let's continue.
He was like, hey man, I ain't trying to end up like RBN. Let's continue.
Representatives, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but it was about the Biden administration's announcement that it is essentially ready to demand that TikTok either sell itself to an American company or to business interests that the United States government trusts more than its current ownership, or just be banned outright in the United States. Is that a proposal that you support?
You know, I take surveillance seriously. I take surveillance seriously, stealing data seriously, whether it's Facebook or the Chinese. I do think it's a serious issue. The idea that your data is going right into the data system of the Chinese Communist Party. That's not like nothing.
Right. Like, when you hear her talk about crystals and progressive domestic policy and shit, do you hear her stumble like that? She don't even know her rehearsed neocon lines that well. Play that like the last 5 seconds again. Like, she's not even good at it. When she talk about domestic policy, she's like, I'm tired of Americans struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. We need Medicare for all right now. We're going to try to, we don't need China. The Chinese Communist Party. We don't need them looking at our data, right?
Oh, okay. Let's see.
That your data is going right into the data system of the Chinese Communist Party. That's not like nothing. But at the same time, it's also.
She looked at that side, she's like, what my neocon saying? What did Mama Bear want me to say about the Chinese Communist Party? Surely the Democrats will like me now. Surely she will be able to let us be on the debate stage. Unbelievable. It get worse.
So I wish that we saw that same kind of interest in what's going on with Facebook and every other country here in the United States, which should be regulated. So the fact that the conversation is on the table is not illegitimate. But let's see where it goes and what happens. I see both sides of that argument.
I see both
of course
sides.
You do.
I'm not going to take a strong stance. It's not like I'm a leader or anything. I'm not going to take a strong stance on Ukraine. I'll put that to Zelensky. I don't know anything about TikTok, to be honest. I don't know anything about China. I don't know anything about Taiwan, Iraq, Afghanistan. Shit. I don't know anything about that shit. But elect me to be leader. Let me be leader, though. I'll take a stance. I'm a neutral kind of motherfucker. But I want to be a leader, though. This is unbelievable. Sorry, go ahead. This
is hilarious. This is hilarious.
Unbelievable.
To some extent, but no, I don't think we should get rid of TikTok. I myself am as a candidate. I mean, TikTok is I thought TikTok, had its value before, and I certainly see its value now. And I think
this has been complete gibberish. Like this last 45 seconds. Because she just went from the Chinese Communist Party and I take surveillance seriously and going that way to now, and I'm a candidate. So like it's almost the complete opposite here that we're having, like literally in like 45 seconds.
Some people, particularly the younger generation, We don't have to rush to an answer on every single issue the moment something occurs. It's okay to process something. The larger question.
We don't need to answer. This is vibes, man. Y'all niggas, y'all stressing over the answer of important geopolitical questions. Man, we just need chill, man. What the fuck y'all tripping over? Then the leader, the Putin left.
Question about surveillance and data mining is not something that we should avoid.
What about the U.S.-Chinese relationship, just more generally? Do you see the Chinese as a kind of competitor of American hegemony? Do you see them as something greater than that, say like an adversary, or do you see them as an enemy of the United States?
It feels, and I've watched this show, it feels very much like Glenn Greenwald, for whatever reason, feels like he has to dumb down the questions.
Yeah, he
doesn't normally talk like that. That's why I'm like, what? Wait, because he's clearly dumbing down how he's even asking the question, and he understood that from the first question, and he's been doing it ever since. But he clearly, that the way he just asked that is like,
yeah. If you had confidence, if you had confidence in her answer, you'd be like, what do you think about United States relationship with China and how it reflects on their hegemony? Like, he asked these long-winded questions. They're not like a basic question because he's like, I didn't you here, and it's unbelievable in Ukraine because she missed every single one. This one's gonna be incredible. I don't know how far I got. I'm interested in hearing her answer on this one in particular.
Kind of competitor of American hegemony? Do you see them as something greater than that, say like an adversary, or do you see them as an enemy of the United States?
I want to stay away from any language like enemy of the United States. I want to stay away from anything even like adversary. We are a competitor, and we have we have a lot of economic interrelationship right now, and we should continue to be competitors, and we should be looking down the road and hoping for the day when cooperation and collaboration on such things as climate change will be the normalized position. In the meantime, we have some real differences with the Chinese Communist Party, and we should not pretend that those don't exist either. But we don't need a Cold War with China. We don't need.
What are the differences?
One country negotiates by bombing and threats. Other country negotiates by debt cancellation. Other country has a nationalized bank. Shouldn't you be in favor of that? You know, China nationalized all the banks, so they don't have to worry about landlords jacking up the prices on people. That's why housing is extremely affordable in China. Their education system. Shouldn't you be saying there are things that they've done? They uplifted people out of poverty. They have fixed the housing issue. They don't have massive homeless problems there. They have a high upward mobility rates as well. Like, you think these things that we should be looking? No, we are a competitor. We're a competitor. I'm not competing with China. I'm asking you, are you guys competing with China? What are you competing with China for? I'm not competing with them. That's imperialist language. Why are you saying we're competitors? This is ultimate. I see someone say this. I'll just see this comment. This fence rider language. The same way they answered before on TikTok. Yeah, I think TikTok. Yeah. I see the uses for the young people, but also shouldn't we be concerned about the Chinese spying on it? Like, she is a professional fence sitter, which is not even like great if you're a congressperson, but you're running to be commander in chief, the leader of the free world, the leader of the left. Like, because if you are the left nominee, you are like the de facto, I am the left figurehead. You're the person who want to be the left figurehead, the leader, but you're a fence-sitting motherfucker. And if you're a fence-sitter, okay, that's fine. But how about you, stay in your lane? Because you don't take any strong positions on these things. But let's continue.
I think that's on purpose, either because she wants to cast a wide net, so she's willing to just change what she believes. And two, and this is probably the one that's more prevalent, she literally doesn't know what's going on. Like, she doesn't know the topic. She's not that well versed on it. And that's especially when we're talking about foreign policy. So, yeah. All right, a few more seconds of this, and then a couple of other shorter clips so we can move on to some other topics for the last 30 minutes. I figured this was going to go for like 2 hours and 30 minutes, Nick. So I don't feel like we're behind.
That's fine. I got
it'll be a slightly longer today because we got some stuff. And this interview was just, we could not skip this. Like, this stuff is important about this foreign policy stuff that we need to get out about Marianne.
And you notice no one else asked her about these damn questions. No one asked her about these foreign policy questions. Said Glenn Greenwald and RBN. The only one. Then I asked her about the two-state solution, and then she accused me of mansplaining. Had a meltdown. So it was like be very skeptical of these people you see that have Marianne Williamson on, and then like, let's talk about Medicare for all, so we all know we agree on, so that all the countries agree on. What? Ask her some real questions. If you're not asking a person who ran for president, foreign policy, you are doing a softball, pathetic interview. At the end of the day, let's continue.
Absolutely. All right, so let's continue.
Saber rattling. That's not where we should be. We should be careful. We should try to remain competitors, yes, in a healthy way, hopefully for that day where it is healthy competition. And in the meantime, we're not naive either about the Chinese Communist Party.
So
I'm not naive either about the Chinese Communist Party. We're not naive either about the Chinese. And I'm asking you guys this question because this should tell you everything about Marianne. What does Marianne Williamson want you to be afraid of China for? I'm asking. Why is she taking these positions? This is the position.
I don't think she knows. I don't think she knows the answer. I think, like I said, I think she just looked at a bunch of videos, studied a couple of things, and she knows key phrases. And she knows Chinese Communist Party is a phrase that all the politicians are using.
Basically,
so it's like she hops on it. Go ahead.
You see all the propaganda. She watching Morning Joe thinking that they on fire.
Yes.
Like Chinese Communist Party. Damn, right? Gotta write that one down. That's a good one to describe my fear of these people. Like this is the leader of the boutique left. Like it's all, and I talked to CJ and Rome about this. But it's like it's almost as if you want to pick one person because they hate RBN. And they hear our message for the last year where we've been critiquing the boutique left in the managerial class. And it's almost like if you pick one person that could have summed up our positions on the boutique managerial class to represent you guys. If you guys went to prove us right, you like, let's anoint one person that sums up RBN position on us, and you guys chose the right one, Marianne Williamson. You guys couldn't have proved us right more by anointing this person as a leader. Embarrassing shit right here.
That's such a spot on point. We'll play like another minute of this and then we'll skip to the other couple of videos here.
CEO, when testifying for 6 hours in the face of very hostile bipartisan questioning, was to try and claim, I think often validly, that many of the concerns that were raised about TikTok, and you suggested this yourself in a prior answer, were also true of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Google for sure, namely questions of how we're being tracked and how that data is being weaponized and how it's being sold. Another big concern about big tech recently from the Twitter files, but also other reporting, has been the attempts by the United States government through agencies like the CIA, the FBI, Homeland Security, to influence content moderation or censorship decisions by big tech. There's two sides of that argument. One is those agencies have no role whatsoever to play in how those private companies make those decisions. The other is, no, actually, a lot of the content on big tech is a threat to the United States, and we want those agencies that are designed to protect us telling these companies what they regard as potentially dangerous, potentially harmful to American citizens. What is your view on sort of the Twitter files and the revelations of them and the proper role between the U.S. security state on the one hand and big tech on the other?
She had no idea. You know, Glenn, you're a real one for asking that question because we know she has no fucking idea. But let's see, because you can
see in her eyes, you can see in her face. She's like, and she did this. I guess. Let me see. All right, let's see. Let me just back it up maybe 20 seconds here. Yeah, 20 seconds. Right about there.
The United States, and we want those agencies that are designed to protect us telling these companies what they regard as potentially dangerous, potentially harmful to American citizens. What is your view on sort of the Twitter files and the revelations of them and the proper role between the U.S. security state on the one hand and big tech on the other?
Well, I don't want the Chinese Communist Party messing with me, but I don't want the CIA messing with me either.
Okay, let me try to let this play. Let me try to let this play.
So the idea that the CIA is going to protect me by anything it's doing at Facebook does not necessarily make me feel safer or happier. At the same time, if there is any regulation to be had regarding protection of privacy, it's much easier for the U.S. if it's an American company. So
she literally is answering both sides to every question she gives an answer to.
Bro,
she just picked both sides.
Oh,
she just picked both sides.
Biggest fist sitter ever.
She just picked both sides. We're not done with Marianne. I'm gonna interject. Too much. Go ahead. I'm gonna interject. I'll set the other one up.
No, this is literally within the same segment. Like this is. I'm gonna show you guys this. This is from Midwestern Marks. A great video to wrap up that unhinged performance by Marianne Williamson. They say constantly referring to the Chinese Communist Party and the CCP just make our media look dumb and ill-informed. I didn't have Eddie on. They're probably gonna be a guest you guys will see here soon. Let's listen to what he said.
The craziest thing about our government and our media surrounding this whole TikTok ban is they're so ill-informed that sometimes they don't even get the names of the things they're talking about correct. And this isn't even a bad interview. They're criticizing the ridiculous and borderline racist congressional hearing where they kept asking this man from Singapore if he's loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. Like, that's literally not even the name of the party. It's the Communist Party of China. Western media just likes to say CCP is like, I don't know, an insult or disrespect to China, but you guys just make yourselves look stupid, like you don't know what you're talking about. And then in this interview, the Fox News host keeps calling TikTok Tic Tac, like you guys have teleprompters. Net Taibbi's awesome though. Shout out to him. I do more research for my YouTube and Twitch streams than I think 90% of Fox News hosts do for their show.
Yeah, apparently a presidential
wish I made as much
candidate
money as them.
Apparently he does more research than a presidential candidate. For the progressive, apparently.
That's exactly what happened. So what I want to do now is bring up a couple of points that because I don't want to watch the entire interview of Bad Faith. It's an hour-long interview. So I watched it. I took the time and watched everything. And let me bring up the first one is 2403. So let me first share my screen and then I'll move to that. So here is Bad Faith. And let's go large. All right, so 2403 is the first one. So I'm just kind of fast forwarding now. So actually, let me just tell you what this is. So Brianna Joy Gray interviewed 2 people. And this was dropped like right before we went on. Her show drops an hour before ours. Hers comes on at 2 to 3 or sometime in that hour. And then we start at 3. So these 2 gentlemen, and let me show you their faces. These 2 gentlemen here are work for Marianne Williamson's presidential campaign. The one in the top left is from South Carolina. He's the state director for Marianne campaign in South Carolina, and the one in the bottom is from New Hampshire, and he's the state director from New Hampshire. So that's who these 2 people are. And the question she poses for her video is, can we win? And this is referring to Marianne Williamson. Like I said, it's an hour video. I already knew we had the Glenn Greenwald video, so I knew we couldn't watch all of it. So let's just go to the 3 points I have mentioned here. First one is 24. So let's listen to this first point in question.
To shut down the possibility of debates. So are they just waiting to see what the field looks like before they make a decision?
I honestly don't even think that has anything to do with who's running and who's not running. I think they just want to wait to the last possible minute so it doesn't encourage anybody else to jump in. And also, I think the undemocratic DNC that we have, they're just trying to like save face at this point because they know that this doesn't look good, their moves. So possibly waiting until the summer when everybody's distracted with the summer and all that kind of stuff and not focus on politics so much, perhaps. Maybe people will forget. So I honestly don't even think that has anything to do with candidates. I think Joe Biden is going to run and he's going to decide this summer and announce it, and they're going to wait till the last possible minute. And the reason is because Joe Biden, polls change day by day with Joe Biden. You know, he is probably one of the most unpopular Democrats to have run in recent history. 70% of Americans don't want Joe Biden to run again. So it's worth it to the DNC to wait as long as possible to do anything that could possibly hurt them in this case, including changing fully the calendar, including having no debates, and including having Joe Biden run for president again. And this is coming from somebody, I supported Joe Biden wholeheartedly in 2020 after the primary season.
Of course he did.
I believe in democratic values, but I also believe in the democratic process. And if there are candidates that are better than Joe Biden running, such as Marianne Williamson, I am going to take a look at them and I am going to support them if that is what it takes. And I think there needs to be a democratic process, and we're going to raise as much hell as possible here in New Hampshire as New Hampshire Democrats to make sure that our voices are heard, that we're not silenced, and that we have a democratic process. This is really undemocratic what's happening.
Well, look, this is a question for both of you, because I hear what you're saying, Carlos, but I would be remiss not to point out that there are.
Okay, so I have to calibrate. So let me explain. So I am a paying member for Bad Faith Podcast. So I get the audio version, and the audio version does have an intro edit on it. So I have to calibrate the number I wrote down to what the video is, because this is the question I had queued up from the audio. So now I know that it's about a minute off. So it's about a minute off of so now I know how to do this. So anyway, this is the question I was waiting for, Nick, for everybody to trying to queue up.
A lot of people listening to this show who don't feel so strongly about the Democratic Party, or they feel strongly about it, but in a negative way. And the reason is because they have seen the ways in which the Democratic Party has rigged elections to prevent progressives, who frankly represent the interests of most Democratic voters, from actually being successful within the Democratic Party. And you can go to Donna Brazil's admissions about the DNC rigging the election. You can go to the in-court statements where the DNC admitted it felt had no obligation to be fair and how it administered the 2016 election. You can point to any number of pieces of evidence for that proposition. But most people intuitively understand the way that Bernie was treated in both 2016 and 2020 makes them feel like, even under the best circumstances with a close to ideal candidate, that the Democratic Party is simply not going to allow it to happen. So what do you say, and this is a question to both of you, perhaps I'll start with you, Mercurius. What do you say to people who have the perspective that they fundamentally are distrustful of Marianne's candidacy, the viability of the candidacy, and also her understanding of how power works, if you're still willing to work within the Democratic Party construct? Why?
The question is a great question, because she lays it out good and, makes the point that I would make. Now, we might have added some other parts, but I just want to make the point that the setup of the question is pretty good, in my opinion. So let's continue.
That decision.
So for me, I would say, and I'm trying to
Now, you get how he's having a hard time, you know what I mean? If you ask me, hey, about Rome, I'm gonna start naming off a bunch of stuff. Yo, Rome do this, Rome library, blah blah blah, quickly. But you see how, hey, Democratic Party, these failures, she set it up, and then she says, so what, how do we work with that? And he's like, well, it's an admission of, I'm selling you a pipe dream, sir. There's no other way to even address this, but to be, you have to sell a pipe dream yet again. And that's what I see in his sort of warming up to the question. But let's listen to what he says, actually.
Be respectful to everybody's points of views as possible. We know that the system is rigged. We know that they did this, everything that you just said. So we have, basically for me personally, we have a choice. We know the system is rigged. We can complain about the system being rigged, or we can try to find a way to fight harder, stronger, and better.
Donate more money. Donate more money. Fight hard. We need more labor hours. Apparently, Bernie 2020 wasn't enough. How is that an answer to the question? In fact, that's a horrible answer. So Bree mentions how the system was rigged and they screwed Bernie. And then she even mentioned how a lot of people like us see that how if Bernie in his amazing position couldn't win, how is Marianne going to win with significantly less grassroots support and without even the support of Bernie Sanders and the progressive movement? And his answer is, come on, man, with that fucking negativity. We just got to fucking fight harder. We just got to believe in positive vibes, the power of friendship. We can do it. We can do it. Fuck that negative shit. That's not an answer.
That's so funny. All right, let's listen to his answer in the next. And then she asked this question again because they ramble on. So I'm going to fast forward it again to when she had, and they kind of give slightly different answers, and then we'll move on from here. So let's listen.
And that's what we've had to do, like here in the South, because everything was rigged against us in the South. So Black people couldn't be in office, so we couldn't do stuff. So we have learned to find a way to fight harder, to fight smarter.
Dude, that's the second time. The first time came from Marianne Williamson herself.
Yeah, it came directly from her.
When she was asked, man, the chance of you winning this shit is pretty much slim to nil. Why are you doing this? She's like, man, the civil rights movement, that shit was hard too. Like, you running is not comparable to the civil rights movement, Marianne, okay? And then so this is the second time I heard this because he was asked this question by Bree in essentially another way. And he brought up like, man, in the South, man, shit, we didn't have to fight to vote and we've still fought back then. That is not comparable. Marianne Williamson's Vanity Project using electoral politics is not comparable to the civil rights era. And I feel like this is an answer we're going to hear quite a bit this year.
Yes.
Because this is a pattern. If you ask about how hard this is, bring up, man, MLK, you had a really hard time. They said, shit, we never did get civil rights after Emmett Till. Look where we at now. Marianne, really? That's your answer.
Yeah, we went from Emmett Till to George Floyd. So there you go.
And to work around the system. And that is something we can do with these campaigns, especially Marianne's campaign, because there's a groundswell of people who want to support her, that are behind her. And so if we put the infrastructure, we put the investments in here, yes, they rigged their primary.
Man, he knows, man. He knows what this is about. That's a fugitive slip if I ever heard it. Got to put the investments.
Oh, it's not no fraudulent slip. Throughout this interview, he keeps saying stuff like that. You have to invest. He keeps saying stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes, they made it harder for us to win. So we have to be strong enough to have the willpower enough to have the hope enough to say, so what? I'm going to win anyway. And we have to develop that type of mentality that we're fighting for this stuff, even though we know it's rigged against us. The entire Southern political system is rigged against people that look like me. And we keep fighting and finding ways to win. And that's what we got to do. We have to keep the fight up, find our way to like.
You know that there's no receipts behind it. It's just literally a feeling.
Yes.
You have to just overcome your feeling of despair. Dude. That is simply it. Go ahead.
He literally, sorry, CJ, but he literally says it. Could we describe this shit as what we say? We said hopium. He literally said, we got to rely on hope. We got to rely on the power of positive. We got to dig deep. This motherfucker sound like a junior varsity coach. Nigga, you talking about the resources of the working class challenging the system of capitalism, and he's giving a junior varsity speech. We got to dig deep, man. Believe in the power of positivity. We got to
remember the Titans.
Believe. We believe. Anyway, let's continue. I could not parody.
We know this is rigged. We know that's going to be a problem. So what can we do to find the solution to work around that?
What is the solution in a place? I mean, because you've described a lot of.
Thank you. Bree, at that point, Bree was like, all right, come on, man. Bree was like, okay, what is the solution? Because at that point, that motherfucker sounded like Hulk Hogan at that point. So Bree was like, all right, come on, give us some answers.
Hulk Hogan.
I was thinking about, I forget the exact number, but it was something like 40, 50, 60% of Black voters in South Carolina said that the Clyburn endorsement was dispositive for them in voting for Joe Biden. Joe Biden has incredibly strong numbers for voters, Black voters over 60, older voters, generally speaking. There's something like 76% of all Black voters over 60 voted for Joe Biden. You've described the kind of time investments that are required to make a dent in the relationship structures that exist in South Carolina. So, what is the plan to break through? Is Marianne planning?
The way they nodded and listen to Bree right now is like the first time they ever heard the shit. It's like this is what the first thing we came to. Remember we was talking about the Marianne Wilson campaign? We was like, hey yo, by the way, even if you didn't was as radical as us, because we tried to argue things multiple ways. Because there's our position where don't organize within the Democratic Party. I don't give a fuck if you're about to win or not, right? Then I was like, all right, let's use your argument. If you believe that we should do that if you can win, what about South Carolina? That immediately came up to us. That's immediately a giant hurdle for you guys. They rigged the primary, moved South Carolina up, and you guys are going to get blown out after South Carolina, and then everyone's going to be like, oh my God, progressives can't win. You guys might well drop out. And Brianna bring this up, and they're just looking like, oh shit, this is a good point. Like, y'all didn't consider this? Like, that's the first thing we considered. Let's see their answer. That's why I was laughing. It's like, bro, you guys did not even think about this? Like, it was the first thing I thought of. Like, how do you get over the South Carolina? If I still believed in the same strategy that I believe in 2018, that we should run presidential candidates in the Democratic Party, my first thought was like, damn, bro, they just changed the South Carolina rules. That's what I will be on. I won't be worried about RBN and what they feel about us. Like, that's like their main priority.
Do that.
I'll be worried about what the fuck we're going to do in South Carolina.
Hurdle.
But anyway, let's continue. I'm talking too much. Let's continue.
And to spend more time in the state, I guess it should have been started yesterday or a year ago, maybe even, but starting now at the very least. Like what do you see as the path to victory there?
What do I see as the path to victory here is like having Marianne come, having people hear Marianne and actually listen, like Carlos was saying. When people are giving her a chance and like hearing her and seeing her and interacting with her, they're coming on board. And so you got to do that. It's kind of tedious work, but it works.
Does that sound like a satisfying answer for you guys?
No.
So let me sum up what just happened here. So Bree brought up a very great point that we brought up all the time. What are you guys going to do about South Carolina? You got to have Jim Clyburn that will influence the election. This is what Bree is bringing up to him. Most voters in South Carolina said that Jim Clyburn decides their vote. What is your strategy to overcome this plan that defeated Bernie Sanders? And his answer was, man, they really don't know Marianne yet. Once Marianne gets down there, he's really going to show them. Does that sound like a fucking cohesive strategy? They have no idea what they're going to do about South Carolina. That's your strategy? Marianne Williams is going to come down there and all of a sudden be more influential than Tim Clyburn? All you got to do is just meet some people, shake some hands, and she's going to overcome the endorsement.
How come that didn't work for Bernie Sanders then? How come that didn't work?
I was in South Carolina, fam. The team that we had, the resources that we pulled in South Carolina, why do you guys think me and many people that was on the ground saying hard no to Marianne, nigga, if we lost in 2020, no one is replicating that. We have, despite what people say, we have massive on-the-ground communications and activism going on in South Carolina. I told you guys the story before. I met a dude that literally traveled from Sweden. We had people all over the goddamn country traveling to South Carolina. We had a giant base in Charleston. I was in Beaufort. I traveled to Charleston a few times. There were bases all over the fucking the state, And Bernie still got washed. But Marianne's going to show up, and she's going to smile at some people, and she's going to do what Bernie couldn't do. Unserious.
Just unserious. So I fast forward to the next part. Again, I calibrated a little bit, so it's going to play like 20 seconds before she gets to the question. So let's listen.
Bring in the people who just don't like body.
Let me ask both of you about that then. Carlos, I'm going to come to you first. Are there efforts being made to attract independent and Republican voters? And do you see any appeal that the Marianne is having, any kind of demonstrated appeal among those groups?
I have to say, I also want to address your first question about your listeners, viewers, maybe not being so excited about the Democrats.
Okay, so here he comes back to the question, and this is where he comes back to that initial question where the South Carolina rep has already answered, and he's going to answer it here. Now I remember.
Democratic Party. I can agree. I'm not excited about the DNC. I don't think anybody could be under the circumstances that we're living today. I'm excited about my party here in New Hampshire because we tend to do things much different than the DNC. And it's the obvious reason why they don't want us to go first. That is very crystal clear.
Oh my God.
So I'm not asking anybody to be excited about the DNC. What I'm asking them is to take control of their local parties. That's where the power is. That's where we're going to make change. That's how we're doing it here in New Hampshire. You know, I was able to win my election a couple of weeks ago.
This is something that even I used to fall for back in the day. When they say, all you got to do, there are people who believe in taking over the Democratic Party. They say, all you got to do is get in there in local politics. Take over your local Democratic Party. As if local Democratic Party politics is not rigged. You guys know what it would take to dethrone Emmanuel Cleaver in Kansas City? That boy is a mega house titan. And Quentin Lucas has a mega machine of real estate developers and landlords. That's why when people are like, Nick, will you ever consider running for Congress? Like, nigga, you know who I'm going up against? Manuel Cleaver's like Jim Clyburn here. He got a whole fucking street named after him. Manuel Cleaver Boulevard. No fucking sitting congressman with streets named after him.
Yeah.
But people who are Democrats are like, just take over the local Democrat Party. As if that shit is easy. As Nevada, the Democratic Socialists in Nevada, how easy it is to take over the local Democratic Party. They literally just got ejected out of the party. We need a complete third party. This fantasy where there's good Democrats. Oh, in Philadelphia, there are good Democrats over there. The Democratic Party in San Francisco, man, trust me, they're open. No, nigga, third party. No local Democrat shit. That you guys are misleading people. And I'll be honest, guys, I used to say that shit too. I was like, yeah, we got local progressives running local races. Those local fucking races are rigged. Just like national races. But let's continue.
Yeah, he finishes up here, and then I have the final video before we close this segment, and I will have like 20 minutes left to cover the other one. So we got some time. Let's. But this is interesting. What he says coming up here.
I'm going to be the first Latino on that rules committee ever in the state of New Hampshire, and we're breaking barriers everywhere in New Hampshire. We just elected in a very red town a transgender man who's actually working for Marianne, who was an Elizabeth Warren supporter before. You know, I was a Bernie supporter before. We have somebody else from the Tulsi campaign. And this is an interesting point. We have people from all these camps that worked on all these different campaigns before joining Marianne. And Marianne has an ability to talk to Americans, not to talk specifically just to Black voters or to Hispanic voters or to Indigenous voters or to gay voters. She has an ability to speak to American voters. And that's something that she emphasizes a lot. And I think she's just different. She's able to attract those people. Also, Americans are tired of voting for the less of two evils. That is very crystal clear.
Look, guys,
how is this not that? And Bree is about to kind of go into them right here. So let's listen. But how is that? I just want to pose. But let's listen to Bree's question right here.
Appreciate all of this, and certainly, you know, I guess I'm pushing back because I think that people don't want to, at least in this context, people listen to this episode, they are more familiar with Marianne than the average voter. They don't need to be convinced of what she stands for. Some people disagree with some of what she stands for. They disagree with some of her foreign policy takes. They agree with other parts of her or her domestic agenda or whatever it is. But the concerns are not about that. Ultimately, people, except for some people who I think the foreign.
Was like, yo, I heard that all that shit you guys just said. RBN crowd not buying none of that shit. That's hilarious. Trust me. These people know. These people know Marianne. These people know. The things you guys just said was horrible, and I'm giving you guys a chance to try again. Well, then I'm like Bree's anger translator there. That's literally what you're saying. You're saying it in a very nice way. What you guys just said was horrible. We're not going to win nobody over. So you guys
like y'all need more. You need more than this. So
yeah,
policy stuff is a deal breaker. Put them to the side. That's their choice. Other people are like, why should I invest in this again? Why should I give my donation to this again when the system is so rigged unless I'm being given like demonstrable changes in strategy that are likely to have a different to create a different outcome. So that's what I ask you, you know, are there
we're not going to
what's going on? are there efforts being made? Is appealing to independent and Republican voters really a part of this strategy that's going to help in these open primary states? And if so, what does that look like? What is the infrastructure that's being put into effect on the ground in South Carolina that enables Marianne's time spent in the state to be most effective? Are there going to be efforts to try to meet with people like Jim Clyburn, who Bernie Sanders kind of famously said, I don't want to shake hands and wish happy birthday. Maybe that hurt him in certain parts of the country. Does Marianne have a different approach? When you say about New Hampshire, Carlos, that they do things differently there and they're not quite so beholden to the kind of these national politics, and you've said the same thing, Mercurius, what specifically does that mean? Help the listeners understand what opportunities you see, because I think that's on some level going to be much more persuasive to them than this idea that Marianne appeals to a lot of people. Like, we got that. Like, people know that. People here are familiar with Marianne.
I don't mean to be boring. The strategy in New Hampshire, it's not
it's not about you being boring. I just want you to make
you're not boring. You're not influencing anyone here. You're doing a horrible job. But let's continue. She's like, you're not boring. You sound like a shit lib.
Different audience than the normal audience, the more generalized audience that you are usually talking to.
The strategy in New Hampshire is not much different than what we did for Bernie, because it worked. And Progressive won. So there's no reason to change the wheel. New Hampshire.
Oh my Jesus fucking Christ.
I have another one up there, but we can end that interview on that for the sake of time, Nick. And because that was his answer, and it was completely terrible. That was his answer, and it was completely terrible. But the bigger question, I guess, would be, I'm sorry, it has it on Twitter, is that she said, listen, you try to sell me on Marianne just by telling me she's a great person. Forget all that. We need something else. And then he just says, oh, we're doing the same thing. There's nothing else. That's him answering her question. There's nothing else, Bree. If it's not the candidate, then there's nothing. There's no other strategy. There's literally no other strategy that he's saying. We're going to do the same thing that Bernie did and lost.
But he said, we're going to fight harder. We try really hard. We come together and really believe we're going to overcome the same problem that Bernie had. That's what he said earlier before. Then when asked this question, we're doing the same thing Bernie did. Man, this is one hell of a hustle.
It's not believable. And to your point of it being a hell of a hustle, man, that was a great segue. Listen to the first 2 minutes of this monologue here from the boys that do Dissonance. And they point out how Kyle Kulinski, who was sitting on 980,000 subscribers for well over a year, and the plan, how do I fix that, enters candidate Marianne Williamson. Let's listen how they perfectly break this down. And this will be the last part of this segment, Nick.
Kyle Kulinski was stuck about 970,000 to 980,000 subs for well over a year. And then campaign season started, and he figured out that the way he was going to boost his subscription count was he had to back a candidate. And so he's been all in on Marianne Williamson for the last couple of months, and boom, million subs, baby. That's what I told you this was about. That's what I told you this was about. You got to listen to me. You got to listen to me. Okay? So now we're going to break this down, because now he is all in for Marianne Williamson, and he was very, very upset at a Politico article that recently came out. I'm just going to toss this on the screen very, very quickly because we have some other exhibits that we're going to show. But this came out here. Marianne Williamson's abusive treatment of 2020 campaign staff revealed. All right. So this details some allegations of workplace abuse at Marianne campaign headquarters in 2020. Kyle put out a video tearing this apart, or so he tried. We're going to play excerpts from this video. We will link to the full video in the description. I will update the description of this video with that so that people can watch the whole thing if they want. There's really no reason to. We just want to make sure that you understand we're not editing it in a manipulative way to take anything out of context. So we'll give you access to the full thing.
This video made me fucking furious. It's so dishonest. It's so deceptive. It's so disrespectful to the people who watch him and trust that he's telling them the truth. Like the things that he does here, the tactics that he uses, they're not only corporate media propaganda tactics. There is no kind interpretation you can put on it. Well, he's distorting it. It's on. No, he lies. He lies repeatedly, just one lie after another, demonstrably throughout this segment. And one thing I'll point out before we get into it, he doesn't, this is unusual not to put up the article text on the screen when you're breaking down an article. He can't because he's lying. He's lying about what's in the article. If he actually put up the text, it would contradict what he's saying.
All right, let's get started here.
And we're only going to listen
Williamson,
to like
what do we
2
know
minutes
for
of this
sure?
stuff.
What do we know as a rock solid fact? In the 1980s,
He's terrible in the beginning.
when everybody was running away from HIV and AIDS patients at 100 miles an hour, Marianne Williamson was holding their hands and giving them their medicine as they died and giving them love. And
Now, I must say, this is what a lot of people that want her are starting to run with because they feel like it's unimpeachable until wait to Deuce Dissidents pull up the article from 30 years ago where no. And one of the Due Dissidents guys, he's old enough to remember in the 80s when she was helping the AIDS patients, Nick, there was also scandals behind her leadership with helping those patients at that time when no Oprah was around. There was no chance of her running against Joe Biden. So this wasn't a hit piece that was written about her, this old one. So, and he makes the point here. So let's listen to this breakdown.
and affection as they died. So take the biggest upside of Marianne Williamson, her kindness, her sympathy, her empathy, and turn it into a weakness and go, actually, you guys might not know this, she's the worst person in the world to have ever lived.
Okay, so this is what Kyle is not telling you. Yes, a lot of people were running away from AIDS patients, and God bless her for doing that work. I'm not denying that she did do work like that. But at the same exact time, people were running away from Marianne Williamson for being a crazy, manipulative tyrant who would drive her staff to tears. And she was actually often accused by people of using what she was doing to gain fame and notoriety around Hollywood. So we have the first exhibit.
This is from 30 years ago, people. So there's no hit piece here. This is 30 years ago, a description of this. Now, this is the reason why Kyle had to not put this article up.
Criticism centers on
because this article was linked in that article.
Her high-handed management. Now this is from an article that appeared in People magazine 30 years ago. And you're going to see a lot of similarities as we go back and forth between this Politico article that Kyle is claiming is completely untrue. It's uncannily similar to the complaints that people had about her 30 years ago. They were saying the same exact thing about her back then. Last year, in a dispute over the Manhattan Center for Living's religious orientation, William dismissed most of its board members, including film director Mike Nichols, who went on to create a rival AIDS support organization. So in New York, the whole, a good portion of the board wound up, led by Mike Nichols, went and created their own AIDS organization rather than to work with Marianne Williamson. So now on the LA side, she went through 4 different executive directors. So she finally fired a very popular local politician who had become executive director, leading to an uprising among the staff. So
30 years ago, Marianne Williamson had this reputation. During her work that everybody wants to reflect on, Bree does it herself in that interview she has with the state reps. They bring it up in there. Kyle brings it up where they're trying to act, and they're not talking about this part where she had four directors or 4 head people. The 4th one was so popular that it created a revolt when she got rid of them. And the point that we're making here is that Kyle lies throughout this video, and of course we don't have time to play it all. We don't even have time to play this whole clip. But he lies throughout this video, omitting information. And the thing is, Nick, you and I covered it, and we were like, yeah, this is probably a hit piece. This current one, not this old article, but the current. We was like, yeah, this is probably a hit piece. All he had to do was cover the truth, and it was still a hit piece. But he had to embellish on top of the thing by omitting information that was in the article, the hit piece article, that would not prove his point, which is just pretty slimy.
Yeah, and the point that I probably should have been clearer on, just because the fact that it's a hit piece don't mean it's not true. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because combine the point I made before is that they can write this story about pretty much every single Democrat. You guys think they all not horrible bosses? They all you think these people are not psychopaths? Marianne Wilson is just more of the same. This is why I don't trust her. This is why she gave us that horrible vibe that called me a mansplainer. And you guys saw the vibe she had in our interview. So I 100% believe it based on just how she treated us. Right? Compared to how the Fox News guys who she considered to be on her same class. The Fox News guy is her class. He has a suit. He interrupts her, is way more rude to her than I was. But she don't call him a mansplainer. She don't attack him. She don't act all, oh my God, I can't believe you did this to me. While that guy was interrupting her, accusing her of wasting time, like he was aggressive. But he's among her class, so she can tolerate that. So I 100% believe it, but they can definitely write a story about anybody. 100%.
Yeah.
That was the point. That was the point I was making. Like, if you find one person who didn't like the organization, you want to take someone out, you can write the story if you want to, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Now, to Kyle Kulinski, this is what our criticism of him is. Independent media became the same thing they claim we were supposed to counter corporate media from doing. Kyle Kulinski often said that Noam Chomsky is someone he looked up to. Noam Chomsky wrote Manufactured Consent. And Kyle Kulinski, it's like he took the knowledge that Noam Chomsky wrote, like, dude, I'm going to master that shit so I can become part of the club, which he has become. He's essentially an unapologetic Biden bro at this point. And they even openly admit it. So this is him doing what Noam Chomsky warned us about in corporate media that we are supposed to not do as independent media, manufacture consent to a politician by lying by omission. The lie by omission is a big thing. Because I saw, like, if you go on this channel, I saw one that popped up in our recommendation feed on RBN where it was like Bernie Sanders slays Fox News, which he may have not done, right? But he covers that story, but he's not going to cover Bernie Sanders calling anti-war protesters Putin puppets, right? He's not going to show that interview that we covered where Bernie Sanders punched the ball on Ukraine. Well, he's like, oh, I'm not really following that, because he knows if you show these things that we show you guys about the squad and Bernie, that his audience will turn against him. So what he does, he take those out and show nothing but positive stuff. Like, oh man, aren't they progressive? Aren't they great? They're the best among us, aren't they? Once again, I bet Bernie Sanders did a great job on Fox News. But to me, in the grand scheme of things, with your voting record, that is very insignificant.
Yeah.
The media experience, right?
Great on Fox. The voting, but sending buildings to Ukraine, and we can stop that there. And I know we got a couple of quick stories, but we can do one of them. Taiwan president visits China, or Uganda gay bill. Is there one of those?
I'm gonna do the Uganda because there's a few things I want to tie that to, so I don't want to rush that segment because I probably bounce here soon. But I will show you guys this because the Taiwan story I can present pretty quickly, and there will be updates to this, so I can always do a longer segment on this later. Now, this is significant because this is the first time that a former president of Taiwan had visited the mainland of China, especially on the go of peace. So let me pull this article from Reuters, but many people, and this is all over the news. So yeah, the former president of Taiwan who arrives in China pledging peace. So this is a direct rebuke to people like Ro Khanna and the progressives who ready to go to war to protect Taiwan. It's in Taiwan's best interest to maintain strong diplomatic relationships with the mainland because they economically benefit from it, but the West do not care. The West did not care, so that's why they arm. That's why they prop up Taiwan separatist movements and protesters in Taiwan. Was a direct violation of Chinese sovereignty. Imagine if China or Putin directly propped up Texas separatist movements, Hawaii separatist movements. Can you imagine? Russiagate exists on the premise that Russia got involved in the election. Nigga, what the United States does in Taiwan is way worse than what they accuse of Russiagate. Do you guys understand?
Like 10 times worse, or more than that, probably. Go ahead.
Now, this is big because we've seen reboot in Taiwan. We showed you guys a story a few weeks ago where Taiwan voted in favor of the party that was running on restoring and maintaining good relationship with China, a direct rebuke of the Western popped-up anti-China Taiwanese separatist party, who have softened their rhetoric recently regarding on China because they see what the West has planned. And this also comes, this is a very crucial part here in this story, because it's not a coincidence that this happens literally right after this, where the Taiwan government is very weak internationally. Most liberals don't know this, but NATO doesn't recognize Taiwan as a state. Like, NATO acknowledges one China, the United States acknowledges one China, and now because China is growing its influence, you have African countries that are scoring Taiwan because they're like, we don't want to justify the Western provocations on China, so they reject Taiwan largely. Taiwan is considered a joke on the international stage, and now you have Honduras, who were just one of 14 countries that acknowledge Taiwan, who flipped their positions because Taiwan making deals with Honduras like they're doing the rest of the world, and the biggest benefit of China winning over the global stage is that they completely delegitimize the Taiwanese separatist movement that was propped up by the West as well. So I'll just read this headline: Honduras break diplomatic ties with Taiwan, and here the subheadline: the Honduran government said it views the island as an inalienable part of Chinese territory. Taiwan then announced it would close its embassy in Honduras and it withdraw its ambassador there. So you have
it's amazing what's happening. Let me just interject. It's amazing because I wanted to interject that story too, the Honduras story. Or I saw that actually before I saw this other story that you mentioned of the ex-president going to China. Now, a couple of questions. Do you think that the Taiwanese? Do you think Xi Jinping is the one who set that out? Like, kind of reached out to the ex-president that, hey, we need you to come in and kind of help facilitate some conversations with Taiwan. Do you think he kind of?
The West have a geopolitical strategy where they acknowledge the one China policy while undermining it every step of the way. China has had a policy where they like not worried about the West because it's like their way of projecting strength. It was like, oh well, Taiwan, there's no way they will ever side with the West. The West doesn't have their best intentions. So this is a big blow to the West because it backs up Xi Jinping's posture. Now, there are times where China's stance is kind of a bluster, like kind of puffing their chest out. So like Taiwanese separatists be like, fuck China, and then China, because it serves them politically, they'll come like, oh, don't worry about it, Taiwan is cool. They're like, nigga, them motherfuckers. but now Xi Jinping have been positioning himself in a position of strength where he like, man, Taiwan, they have no reason to side with the West. The West is full of warmongers who will not be best for their economic development. And I don't know, because you probably might ask someone for Taiwan, but maybe that argument resonated. Maybe Taiwan saw what the West is doing to Ukraine, and now Xi Jinping get this big win because he's like, "Ha, see, told you." Now you have the ex-former president, president of Taiwan has not visited since the Civil War, since the 70s. So this is a big show of Taiwan. Like, okay, we gonna ease off on the Western narrative. So it's just one side. I'm gonna keep my eye on this story. This is just one part of the story. But between this, the Taiwanese recent elections, them continue to expand Taiwanese trade, it's not looking good for the Western ambition to peel Taiwan away from the continent. But it's hard to predict these things. But based on what I see right now, the Biden administration strategy is failing. And I'm gonna show you. I just literally just saw this. I'll look for another tweet. But I think this is a good one to interject because it's from holding Biden accountable. You can kind of see Biden's strategy in China. Biden's been frothing at the mouth to start conflict with China in Taiwan's name, while his handler scrambled to walk back his words and the Taiwanese make moves for peace. So this is a lot of people. This story now making the this is big news, especially we had Nancy Pelosi visit. All this, you have Kevin McCarthy is scheduled to visit later this year, and I'm definitely gonna be covering that and the reactions to that as well. And this just showing Biden's anti-China ambitions. And I covered this story where you have Biden that changed a few tariffs, and it's like, niggas, he changed a few tariffs. That's nothing compared to about what we're gonna do with the Biden administration. And Biden doubled down on Trump's anti-China policy the same way he doubled down on his Iran policy, the same way he doubled down on Trump's ICE policy. The point is, Joe Biden look at Donald Trump is like, man, you're kind of a pussy. Like, I'm gonna do this neocon right-wing shit way worse than you. So I think that's my segment because I'm
the walls are closing in, Nick, and not the United States. You can see the panic in some of the propaganda reports that we cover. The walls are closing in. They can see China with the Belt and Road Initiative, the things that's happening, and the relationship with Africa. You know what I'm saying? Like, they see the writing on the wall. They see Saudi Arabia willing to sell, things and sell oil in yuan. You got all these people that want to apply to BRICS or be members of BRICS. You got Mexico even talking about being members of BRICS. Like, the walls are closing in, and anything China says, they want to act like they're against. They are very fearful, and we saw the panic when Xi Jinping went to Russia to talk to Putin. Like, it's complete panic, and it's one thing that comes out after another. So you have the ex-Taiwanese president going, which is huge, and then you have Honduras saying, we're good, Taiwanese. But the second part to that, Nick, they kind of cut ties. But the second part to cutting ties with Taiwan, they signed a new contract with China.
Yeah.
So that's the other part to that, and this is putting so much fear into the white supremacy model or the white supremacy capitalism. It's putting so much fear. They know their reign is coming to an end, but it's like just that person that want to hang on to power and not release it on its own, and this has to be snatched. And that's what China is literally snatching from them without the military, Nick.
It's hilarious because as the West is making all these boasters claims, doing all these military drills with Japan is doubling the military budget. They sending weapons to Taiwan. You have Biden that is walking back comments saying that they would invade Taiwan, that they will help fight Taiwan. That's against U.S. policy. That was what the articles are covering, how Biden keep saying that we're gonna go to war with China if they invade Taiwan, but they're not U.S. policy, so they already got to walk it back. So the U.S. is like making all these boasters claims. Meanwhile, China is like Muhammad Ali, surgical precision. Like, the United States is a wild brawler, don't know what the fuck they're doing. China, nigga, picking everything apart.
Yeah.
Being cool, calculated. And Xi Jinping looking at the Biden administration like, you guys are amateurs. This is too easy. And it really is too easy for China. And
he really is a tactician. That's what they call it, a tactician. He just like, yeah. He's like a Mayfeather, like you know what I mean? Like Mayweather, I mean. Like he just it's a tactical move that he's making. And just to the point of this comment too, I forgot to mention the Iran-Saudi deal. Like United States is shaking in their boots about all of this stuff.
That's why
this all happened in like 6 months. All of this shit is happening in like 6 months. The walls are closing.
Dude, that's why and I'm pretty sure you feel the same way. That's why I watched the Morning Joe segments, and I'm gonna cover a propaganda report with you guys tomorrow and Nick and Night. That's why I just be laughing at these motherfuckers now, because whenever you hear these unhinged John Kirby, Joe Scarborough segments, that's them wailing at the fall of the Western Empire. So what I said, that's all I have on this segment. Any last thoughts?
No, that's it. I think we can wrap it. This was a long. We used to do 2.5 hour set.
Monday's always on Monday's always a little bit longer.
They're gonna be longer. Today was an extra. And the thing is, Nick, we only didn't get to one story, so that's actually pretty good for us. We only didn't get to one story that was listed in our description. So the Uganda story, we want to be able to present that a little bit longer, or Nick wants to be able to present that a little longer. So need a little bit more time to actually adequately represent that. So, what's coming up? I know we got RBN Live tomorrow, but anything else you want to announce before we get out of here?
My friend Andrew joined me at Nick at Night on Wednesday. I have other guest announcements later this week. We upload every day. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Help us continue to grow, and support us on Venmo as well, and our fundraisers help Aaron, who make our thumbnails. I got a lot of great stuff. Like with some, we barely scratched the surface today. I still want to cover Uganda and the U.S. complicity with that, and what the liberals are calling for, which is pretty crazy. Let's see what else. I have a few more. Oh yeah, this Jen Psaki. Like, I have a statement on her. So she has a new show, and we gotta do this on RBN Live tomorrow. I think this would be good for all you guys to be here. It's kind of a fun show, but it's also informative, because Jen Psaki is about to be the new Morning Joe. Like, because she got this whole setup. She got Eric Holder that just came on. She's about to be the mouthpiece for the establishment. I criticized her and this move by MSNBC, because I'm like, this is like the most rank example of state media. This is someone who's been a State Department talking head her entire career. She was apologizing for the State Department in 2015 under Obama. Now she's the spokesperson for the president, and now she has a cable news show. But that's good for propaganda report, because this show is quite literally directly state TV. Like, this is rank directly from the empire's mouth.
Wow, I haven't seen it yet. Now I really want to see it now.
Yeah, that's why I think like I say Morning Joe, even though Morning Joe not the highest rated, Morning Joe is worth breaking down, because that's the mouth of the empire like show. Oh, they get all the big guests, and like, that's the messaging of the empire here on that show. Jen Psaki is like that next level shit, son. And that shit just started. They had this. She just did a statement. This is the one I'm focusing on statement. She responded to DeSantis' Ukraine segment. She had an interview with Eric Holder. I may break it down solo, because there's a lot to say about that. Like, I don't know how well that interview would do on a panel. You know what I mean? There's so much to break down. But then she also did a panel where she was talking about DeSantis' Ukraine comments. I'm like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, we got another one. This show is insane. So those are previews to my stories I got coming up this week. Make sure you guys like, share. I got a lot of them coming up. Also have some Substack ideas. I'm gonna start writing some. Start trying to get that done.
Nice.
We see. Maybe I should air. Maybe I should air on segments, because I don't even jack them. But I got some good ideas. Anyway, make sure you guys support us. CJ, I pass to you to send us out here.
Yeah,
I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll close with the last part of the Do Dissidents video covering Kyle. So this will be the video that sends us off. We'll be here tomorrow for RBN Live. Let me make sure there isn't anything we're missing here. Well, actually, I haven't did your join our Substack. As you heard, Nick said he's going to begin writing. He's going to start working on something for our Substack. So op-eds are going to be coming soon. So join our Substack for that. Also to get notifications when we go live. There's a clip premiering in about 30 minutes after we get off here. So join our Substack and you'll get notifications of future clips. We have memberships. Make sure you hit that up. We also need to get those likes up. Let's hit that like button on your way out. We much appreciate it. The algorithm of YouTube is not doing us any favors whatsoever. So thank you for those that have hit that like button. We're at 428. If we can get to 500, that'll be great. And we leave you with Do Dissidents speaking on the Lion video from Kyle Kulinski. Uh-oh. I'm going to have to refresh it again. All right, so let's refresh it, and then we will end with that. There we go. There we go. All right. Here we go. But I do want to fast forward it. Let's see if it works still.
Already said there will be no debate. Yeah. Okay. They put this article out for one reason and one reason only. It's a nice, juicy gossip story while Marianne's in the news.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it. It's clickbait.
That's it.
It's clickbait.
There is no motive here. They are not putting this out to crush her. She is polling at 0. She polls at 4 when they force her into the question. The DNC already said there will be no debate. She is a non-candidate. She is not on their radar. If Politico really wanted to stick it to Marianne, you know what they do? Not cover her at all. Because when you're polling as poorly as she is, there ain't no such thing as bad press.
Like they're sitting around at Politico. Oh man, what do we do about Marianne? You know, she's really going to mess up Biden's campaign.
No, but this is the narrative that he has to sell to his audience, or else he would not have reached 1 million subscribers.
Right.
Because the only thing he could do besides gas up a candidate is make boring, sort of boilerplate, platitudinous videos about, do you know the health insurance companies bribe the politicians? Well, yeah, we've known that for 10 years. That's all you have to add to the discourse, because you're not bright enough to add anything beyond that. And so at a certain point, people ain't going to sign up for that anymore, right? You've pretty much drawn, all the juice out of that fruit. So now you need a candidate. It's campaign season. That's what this is about. It begins and ends there. All right.
Well, and I think it's also about tapping into the people who listen to her lectures and who buy her books, because he's run out of people in the alternative media space who want to imbibe the bowl of warm oatmeal that is Kyle Kulinski. So he has to go someplace else. He has to tap somebody else's fans. He's tapping hers.
Right. Exactly.